Emily. That's on Emily. Co-host chat. Okay. Emily, it doesn't let me co-host. Okay. So what a problem there.
I think she, on my side, she is co-host.
She is. Okay.
Yeah, she's good.
Okay. Very good. Okay. Thank you for that.
And Michelle just said the captions look like they're working, so thank you.
Terrific. Terrific. I'm so happy. Okay. So I think we got this. Lovely. Everybody doing okay otherwise? Long time no see. 24 hours went by too fast. They went by too fast. We have 2 chapters tonight, not 3 like yesterday. Go slow and steady, answer all of your questions. Please keep up with the reading. And I hope everybody has received the invite for tomorrow. Am I correct in saying that? So I hope everybody received the invite for tomorrow. Okay, let me just go ahead and turn that off. My phone is ringing. Hold on. Hello? Hello? Okay. Very good. No distractions. Turn down the phone, turn off everything. Thank you for your patience. Okay, I have 41 out of 55, so I have a few more people that will be joining us hopefully shortly. Does anybody have any questions from yesterday? Anything at all? No questions?
Hi. When did you send the invite for tomorrow's class?
I sent it. If you did not receive it, I will resend it after tonight's lecture. Fair enough?
Okay, because I received it from Mr. Raboni like the other day. I don't know.
Okay.
You know what? Please, Irene, send it out to everybody again tonight, so that we're all good.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay. I have hi Irene. If you hover over, I missed that. Hold on. Let me go back to chat. Hover over your camera. There is 3 dots on it where you can rename. Make a point to your name back to yours. Okay. Shall I do that? Frank?
What's the matter? She don't like my name?
I don't know. It says here. Okay. If you want to, LOL.
You can change it. I don't care.
That's okay. I'm prettier than you, so.
That's for sure.
I'm sure people know the difference between us. I'll leave it as is. I hate touching too many buttons because now I'm getting a little phobic that this thing will explode on me. So
yeah, no, I hear you.
Just leave it. If it's not broken, why fix it? Okay, so with that said, we are up to 45 people out of 55. So with your permission, I'll wait maybe another 60 seconds or so.
Not a problem.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to go. Give people the opportunity because trying to be as punctual as possible is not always possible. Okay, so no questions from yesterday's lecture. What did we cover yesterday? We did transport operations, vehicle extrication, and the team approach of healthcare. So it was pretty lengthy, very informative. At this point, hopefully you guys are grasping the material. I hope you did the reading, and by all means throw in some JB Learning. They have great resources, matching, fill-ins, true false questions. Make it yours. This is how you digest the material, and it will not only make you a better EMT, understanding the material, but also towards the end of the course, you have these exams coming up. So rest assured, this information is going to be testable material. So you want to be ahead of the game. Okay, so the more you put into it, the better. Okay, 46.
Right.
Yes, I hear somebody in the background. Somebody has a question. How are you, Michelle? How's Michelle doing tonight?
Said, I'm good. How are you doing?
Good, good. She had great questions last night. Great questions. And I encourage all of you folks to ask a question, even if it is what you may consider not important. Ask it anyways, or just type it in the chat box. Okay, don't leave any information unfounded. You have to make sure you truly understand this, and I'll try my best to do that. Okay, so we now have 47 people. I think we're going to start inching into the chapter for tonight, and as people join us, I could always click on admit. So here we go. We're starting with incident management. It's pretty extensive. Pay attention. Some of this material can be a little ambiguous, but I will try to explain it to the best of my ability. Okay, let's try this again. It usually doesn't go through the first share. Okay, that's just a necessary evil. I have to do this twice. Voila. Okay, so we're in. Let's go ahead and expand and hide our faces so we're not distracting me, especially. Let's see. Come on, let's expand. Perfect. Okay. From my end, it shows green on the bottom of the screen. Everybody should be able to see this. If there's anybody that doesn't see it, let me know, and I could probably go back and stop and reshare for whatever reason. Okay, incident management. So let's see what this is all about. Disasters, mass casualties. We talked about mass casualties yesterday. We touched on it. What is a mass casualty? What is a disaster? Numbers. Okay, numbers, bodies. And of course, hi?
Is it more than 3?
More than 3. Very good. According to your book, which is the national, it's more than 3. Now, let me stop and see if you want to write this down. For New York State, it is 5. Okay, New York State. National, the entire nation, it's 3. According to your book, New York State, it's 5. So try to be a little bit more flexible in that respect, okay? It basically means that it's an overload of resources, manpower, equipment, and the like. So let me just go and admit this person. We're going to have a few late stragglers, apparently. So basically, disasters are happening around the world as we speak. But of course, the last disaster that you and I may or may not remember, you guys being much younger than I, was 9/11. Okay, so we're coming up like on the 20th anniversary already. Yeah, I was there. I responded. Mr. Rabani was there, and many of our fellow instructors were there that day. Okay, 3 or more patients. Put that to memory. Lack of resources. We are only supposed to care for 1 patient at a time. You want to give your patient 100% of you, your knowledge, your equipment. You are going to care for this person 100% throughout the entire length of the call. As soon as you make patient contact, your responsibility is to care for this 1 person. Can you care for 2? Sure you can. Should you? The answer is not, because you can only split yourself so much. So the question here is 1 patient at a time. Always, always call for assistance, additional resources. You come to the scene, the magnitude of the scene just dictates how you need to call for backup, if not already. Because once the 911 call is received, the dispatcher is already aware of the call type. If this is, let's say, a level 1, let's say MCI, we know we want everybody to come to that location. As many people, as many resources as possible. So that is how it's done, starting with the call taker, which is your dispatcher, which we discussed yesterday. Okay, now incident command system speaks for itself. Notice the word command. We have to start with a plan. We have to start at a starting point. Somebody has to be at the helm, at the top, a chief. Remember we talked about yesterday, if you have a building that's on fire, you have your commander, the chief, and he wears this lovely hat that says chief on it. That is your fire commander that is going to be basically the coordinator, okay, of this event, where he knows where everybody is to be, expedite help, and he's constantly aware of the not so much the environment, but of the intensity of the situation. He's constantly in radio contact, knowing what is coming, what is going, what the situation is moment to moment as this plays out. Okay. So what I'm trying to say basically in real time, your commander, your incident commander is aware of everything that's going on, and it is a very multiple sensory input, if you will. And of course, they have the expertise. They are seasoned, okay, in this field where they know how to be able to control, command, and expedite as much help as possible with the least amount of casualties possible. So it's a very, very stressful situation, but that's why we have this incident command system in place to be able to achieve that goal. Remember yesterday we were talking about goals, okay? Try to minimize life, threats, and also casualties or death, if you will, bodies, corpses. Okay, this is something you have to just put to memory. NIMS for short, National Incident Management System. It's on a national level, east to west, north to south. What is this system? And of course, it was devised just in case we should have, let's say, another 9/11 or some other catastrophe, terrorism or natural for that matter. We have to be better prepared than we were, let's say, 5, 10, 15 years ago. Okay, because with 9/11, 20 years ago, we were really, well, we were only so prepared. Okay, but now we are far better. Okay, so we learned a lot of things from catastrophes, mass-casualty incidents. Okay, what happens? Promotes efficient coordination of emergency incidents at the regional, state, and national. What does that mean? The here and now, okay, the center, and everything thereafter. So basically, this is a widespread system. Do I need to expedite help here locally, or does it have to be regionally, or does it have to be statewide, or does it have to be nationwide? Okay. And the one thing that comes to mind, think of COVID. How did it affect us, and how is it affecting us? It is affecting us nationally, right? Here in New York and all the other states combined. So think of it that way. So is it focal or is it just national? And we're ready. And we're ready. When was this implemented? 9/11 was 2001. This is 2004. So it took a couple of years to actually get this plan up and running. There's a lot of planning, a lot of financial burden, a lot of brain power, if you will, to be able to put this into action. So what is it? It's a framework, an algorithm, if you will. It enables the federal, state, local governments to work together. They can work independently, but when we need additional help, that teamwork that we were talking about yesterday, this is where it comes into play. Okay, as well as private sector and non-governmental organizations. So these additional resources, additional help that we get do not necessarily have to be of the government, on the government's dole, if you will. Okay? Okay. Organizational structure to organize. That's the word. Organizational structure must be flexible enough to be rapidly adaptable. What does that mean? At a moment's notice, you have to be able to switch gears, to be able to mold, okay, your resources, your manpower to the urgency at hand at that time. And remember, because this is a very unpredictable situation, what does that mean? Any disaster, mass casualty, whether it's natural or man-made, it is a dynamic that is always evolving. What does that mean? That means it's not stagnant. Just when you think things are going just fine, something happens. And I'll just bring it back to COVID. Do you remember when we thought we had like an isolated virus? Oh, we know what the virus is, we will attack it. Well, what happened soon thereafter? Variants, okay? The mutations. Now we're having these mutations and saying, oh, wait, just when I thought we had this under control, we don't. We have new variants of the virus. Just to use that as an example, okay? So the dynamics are always changing, or at least anticipate the change. Terminology, terms, okay? Labels, if you will. That's basic terminology. Resource classification. All of these are broken down a little bit later in the PowerPoint presentation. Personnel training. Obviously, we need to have the appropriate training to meet the objectives of the job. And certification. We want to make sure somebody has some sort of paper, some sort of document that says, yeah, they have been trained, here's the proof. Okay, so certification is a very, very big thing. It's like saying, oh, I'm going to drive a vehicle without a driver's license. No, you need something to prove that you are trained in how to drive. Okay. Major NIMS components, preparedness. And I believe we touched on that with the ambulance. Okay. During your shift, what do? Or right before your shift begins, you want to be prepared. And this is no different. It doesn't matter if it's an ambulance being prepared, stocked with equipment that's working, or other supplies. This is no different. This is just on a grander scale. Okay. Communication and information management. Okay, communication. As far as communication is concerned, you have person-to-person communication, you have radio communication, and radios are always being upgraded to a better standard, more powerful ability to communicate with radios, because unfortunately, radios can fail. For instance, let's say you're in a spot that doesn't have the capacity to transmit a signal, what we call a dead spot. Now you're trying to communicate over the radio and you're not able to. So learning from that mistake, if you have these situations, we always try to upgrade, improve, and bring things, let's say, to a higher standard, if you will, or state of the art level. Command and management, that's people, manpower, okay? Ongoing management and maintenance. Again, this is a continuum. What does that mean? We're always improving, we're always supplying, we're always exchanging, okay? New information, old information, and upgrading anything that we use, whether it's manpower or not, including training. Okay, sometimes referred, okay, when we say what's the incident command system, it's sometimes referred to as the incident management system. You say potato, I say potato. Does it mean the same? Can we communicate? Yes. So when you say incident system, whether you want to call it command system or management system, it all means the same. It all means the same. Okay? Okay. Where it says here the purpose of the incident command system, or ICS, okay, that's the acronym. It ensures responder and public safety. The biggest concern we have is safety, safety, safety. I harped on it more than once yesterday. And what you have to remember as a future EMT, or if you are part of this teamwork, you are always looking out for any possible hazards. And what did we say yesterday? We said you're always looking out for, your partner, yourself, and the community. Please remember this is called situational awareness. I spoke about it yesterday. Situational awareness is 24/7. As long as you're there, okay, at the command system or post, You have to keep your wits about you. Never let your guard down. Achieve incident management goals. What is the goal? Do the greatest good for the greatest number of people involved, okay, including those people that are helping, that are part of this management system, making sure that we meet the goal to stay safe and sound and do the greatest good for the greatest number of people, okay? Now, it says ensure efficient use of resources. We want to make sure whatever resources we have, we use them. We don't want to be doubling up and tripling up on resources and wasting money, if you will, because all of this is costly, and we want to make this as cost effective as possible. There are funds allocated from the government, okay, federal, local, regional, and non-governmental agencies to fund, okay? Okay, here it is. The duplication that we were talking about, span of control. What does that mean? Remember, we're talking about dependent and interdependent, independent, interdependent, okay? This is basically the same thing, okay? Limit of span of control, okay? There are roles, responsibilities given, handed out, go and do your job, okay? That's your duty. That's your shift. That is your tour, okay? Organizational levels include sections, branches, divisions, and groups. Okay, let's break it down. And here it is. This is the entire system, if you will. Okay? They are independent and they are interdependent. What does that mean? They are always communicating with each other, but they have a specific goal individually, but they are communicating with each other to see what other resources they need between them. Okay, so let's break it down a little further. Roles and responsibilities. Command. I need somebody at the helm. Okay, somebody has to be the chief, if you will. And what's going to happen is I have this person that's in control. Now we break it down. Finances, monies. Okay, this is quite expensive. We have funds allocated, and there has to be somebody that is going to do the book, if you will, bookkeeping. Okay, just like the CPA, certified, public accountant. This is pretty much what it's like, or similar to. Logistics, somebody to make sure we have enough of everything, regardless of what it is, and that we're going to break down also. Operations, making sure everything is functional, okay? Making sure that we have everything that we need. It sounds a little ambiguous, but they are a little independent. And I'll talk about logistics, thinking of food, water, shelter, operations, having to make sure that the manpower is not overstressing themselves, okay, depending on what they're doing. And planning, we always have a plan. That algorithm that I was talking about, we have to do this first, we have to do this next, we have to do this next after that. That is a plan, or a check-off box, if you will. And of course, a command staff. What does that mean? You have the commander, and he has his representatives underneath. Okay, so he basically is going to say, okay, Irene Quinn, you're going to make sure you oversee the finance. Okay, it's like, okay, that's all I have to worry about. Money coming in and out, paying for and receiving for. Okay, so just to give you a small example. Command, incident commander, again, the person that is most experienced, seasoned, and has an extensive resume, okay, in his field of expertise. And if you notice, the very bottom says an IC may transfer command to someone with more experience in a critical area. So let's say you and your partner come to a scene, mass-casualty or disaster. You are now calling for additional resources, but until those other resources come to you, which may have more experience, you are the commander because you're the first one on the scene. Okay, so you're kind of running the show, so to speak, and you're going to wait until someone comes to relieve you that has higher credentials and expertise. And that's what the bottom line means. Okay, not to make it sound complicated. Finance, again, this is the bookkeeping component. Money's coming in, money's going out, paying for supplies, paying for resources. Okay, that has to be done. So all the expenditures need to be documented. Okay, whether they're coming in or going out, spending and the like. Logistics, responsible for communication equipment, facilities, food, water, fuel, lighting, and medical supplies and equipment. Okay, that is a separate supervisor that will take care of the logistics. Now we also have operations at a very large or complex incident, meaning a really big, okay, disaster or MCI. They are responsible for managing the tactical operations, usually handled by the IC. So basically the IC, okay, is overseeing operations because we need more manpower to make sure that we're covering all corners of this planning of the system. So operations, you may have exactly maybe 2 people, 5 people, 10 people being part of operations. They work together for a goal, but they are also there based on the magnitude. Can you have one person handling operations? Sure. But most of the times, the larger the incident, the more people you have handling these operations that directly correspond with the commander. Like I said, it's your liaison, if you will. Okay? It's also where they supervise the people working at the scene, making sure there's safety in place, making sure we have adequacy of supplies and equipment in place, and also making sure that if there is a situation, we can immediately address it and handle it and rectify it. Okay, if that should be, necessary. Planning solves problems as they arise. So you have to think on your toes. Quick thinking. Okay, how do we fix this? How do we resolve it? Is it small? Is it big? Do I need additional resources to handle it or not? So like I said, this is an evolving, okay, phenomena. Develops an incident action plan. If we need to modify the system a little bit to meet the needs at that moment, then we go ahead and modify that plan. Remember that algorithm that I was talking about? And again, it's a very what's the word that I'm looking for? Sorry guys, I'm looking for that special word. I'm just going to say evolving. It's a very evolving phenomenon, okay, for lack of a better word. I'm thinking of another word, but it's not popping in my head right now. Okay, command staff. Again, command at the helm. The safety officer monitors the scene for conditions or operations that may present a hazard. Remember what we said? Safety, safety, safety. Okay, eyes and ears are wide open. Radios are on. We're listening. Incoming, outgoing information on those radios. The public information officer, or the PIO, provides the media, news channel, radio channels, with clear and understandable information. What does that mean? As soon as something happens, all the radio stations, all the mass media people are going to flock to the scene. Everybody wants to be in the know. And of course, the public information officer is that representative to give almost moment to moment information to the media, because most oftentimes media can stay basically indefinitely at a safe location, reporting up to the minute the latest news. Like you hear sometimes, we need to interrupt this or whatever for a live something. So a live broadcast, whether it's on TV or the radio. And this is where your media is getting it directly from the public information officer and sharing it with us, okay, community. So the liaison officer relays information and concerns among the command, the guys up top, the general staff, and other agencies. Your liaison. What's a liaison? Back and forth, like a messenger. Your messenger. Think of it that way, okay? So you see, we have a lot of people that have different roles, different responsibilities. Okay, so as far as communication, has historically been the weak point at most major incidents. Wow, that's really something, right? You figure that would be like the least problematic, but no. If you think about this, when 9/11, and many of you probably not even born, when this occurred in 2001, we had the communications tower on top of the building, okay, Twin Towers at that time. So as soon as the tower came down, okay, that signal was lost with the tower coming down. So now you have these agencies, police, fire department, EMS, trying to communicate, and it's like, I have no communication, no radio signal. And you can only imagine how frightening it is, how isolating it is, and how surreal it is not to be able to communicate at all. So basically, all you have is what you see around you, and probably trying to scream when everyone is screaming because everybody's in panic mode. Everybody's running. Everybody's screaming. People are injured. People are dead. So the whole chaotic, if you will, situation is now uncontrollable. And that's what this means. Communication has historically, even as recent as 20 years ago, has been a weak point at most major incidents. And you can understand why now, since the last mass casualty that we had, we're always trying to improve, improve the communication component, because unless we learn from our mistakes and try to fix it, we only repeat history, right? History repeats itself. And at this point, I think we're so technologically advanced that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. We have improved, okay? To what extent, I couldn't tell you, because unless we have like another 9/11 or major disaster, we really can't put it to the test at its maximum, okay, at its breaking point, so to speak, okay? It is recommended that communications be integrated. All agencies should be able to communicate quickly and effortlessly via radios. Incoming, outgoing, incoming, outgoing. There should be no interruption, no problem. Okay? Communications allow for accountability and instant communication, which is real time. I took on my radio, it's here and now. Okay? Mobilization and deployment. Okay? In other words, to get out the manpower, to get those resources out. Deployment. Check in with the incident commander when you arrive. So let's say you're the EMT, you and your partner are responding to this disaster or mass casualty. You have to report to the person that's in charge, which is the incident commander. You report to your supervisor for an initial briefing. So the incident commander will say, go to supervisor so-and-so. Okay, you identify yourself and you're ready for your roles and responsibilities. That's it. Once that role and responsibility, okay, or that task is handed to you, you just go ahead and get what we call a summary, a debriefing of what is expected of you. Now, record keeping allows for tracking of time spent on the actual incident for reimbursement purposes. So now you have a job to do. You go there and you are told how long you're going to stay there, what you are going to be doing, and all of this is documented. It's logged in like a punch, you're punching in, so to speak. Okay, you got a job to do. We want to make sure that every person is accounted for, where they are, how many hours they're working, and where are they working. Okay, because you do want to get reimbursed, you want to get paid. Accountability means keeping your supervisor advised of your location, actions, and completed tasks. That is something I would put to memory. You are accountable for what? Your location. In other words, if you're told to go to location A, you're not going over to location B. Your actions only do what you were told to do. Okay? And they usually give you like a spreadsheet so you don't forget what you need to do, and complete a task. Once the task has been completed, your job is done. Okay? You may be given another task, but at this point in time, this has been completed satisfactorily and completely. Okay? That's what that means, accountability. Once the incident has been stabilized, the IC or incident commander will determine which resources are needed and when to begin demobilization. In other words, to send people out. Okay? So the question here is, who's accountable? The individual that has this role, that has the responsibility, that is part of this team. Remember what we said yesterday about teamwork, right? We all work together for a good cause. Preparedness involves the decisions made and basic planning done before the incident occurs. So before, let's say, the problem arises, we are prepared. We're stocked. We're ready at a moment's notice to deploy. Think of it that way. Involves decision and planning about the most likely natural disasters for the area. So let's say we have hurricanes coming up the coast. Are we now prepared for the hurricane? Do we have enough energy? Do we have enough food? Do we have enough water? Supplies? That's preparedness, okay? Especially if you know this disaster is headed your way. But if it is a man-made disaster, there's no warning. There's no warning. That's what makes it so lethal and so problematic, because we don't know. We can't anticipate, okay, when it's man-made. Okay, that's why we have our ears, their eyes and ears open, okay, to kind of like look for any threats, any hints, okay, that might be coming our way. Your EMS agency should have written disaster plans. It's written, okay? It's a plan, it's a booklet, and it has just about everything in it. That is your plan, that is your guide, that you are regularly trained to carry out, okay? And again, preparedness is everything. Scene sizer, okay? The bottom questions. What do I have? What do I need? What do I need to do? That's the plan, okay? And of course, you will be given, okay, that task, and you just do it. Establishing command. Command should be established early and by the most senior officer. Remember what we said before. The person with the most credentials, the most experience, expertise, will be the one calling the shots, giving you the assignment, if you will. Notification to other responders should go out, of course, because this is not a one-person job. Necessary resources should be requested. They're usually immediate. They're already there. Let's say you have a task to execute. All of the resources, manpower, if not already there, will soon follow. And again, communications, like we said before. Anything at all. We now have electronic, besides the radio, okay? Think of your phone, electronic device. We have them, like iPads and what have you, tablets as we call them, to get electronic information back and forth done a little bit faster rather than over the radio waves, the signal, okay? So now we have kind of like upgraded that communication component, which is great, If possible, use face-to-face communication, because as I'm facing you right now, there's no room for error. I'm talking to you directly. So that's probably the best way to communicate. If you communicate via radio, it says here, do not use 10 codes or signals. What is a 10 code? Police department, fire department, EMS agencies, we use 10 codes. But those 10 codes from the police department are different than the 10 codes of EMS. Aha. So that's where you can get that miscommunication using what you think your 10 codes, everybody else knows what they mean. They don't. So that's why they're saying don't use those codes. Equipment must be reliable, durable, and field tested. What does that mean? For endurance, for distance, for clarity. Be sure there are backups in place. So give me a second, Michelle. If there is a failure via radio, what other means of communication do I have? Portable radio. If it fails, do I have a backup plan? And the answer is yes. Okay, Michelle, I'm all yours.
Yeah, thank you. My question is, you said, you give me an example of what one of those codes might look like, one of the 10 codes? Like, I guess 10-4, like what would that mean? And how could that get misconstrued between the agencies? Like, what would that mean?
I'm impressed that you know what a 10-4 means. Okay. 10-4 code we will not be using. What we will say instead of 10-4, which means acknowledged, okay, 10-4 meaning I got it or yes, you're not going to use a 10 code, but rather you're going to say, okay, copied or acknowledged, which is the same as a 10 code, but it's not a 10 code being used. It's a word, okay? It's a word. And that way there is no ambiguity
Got it.
in communication. Okay, so you said 10-4. I know what 10-4 is. You know what 10-4 is, but another agency may not use a 10-4 code. It's like, uh-oh. See, where that would be miscommunication. Okay. Medical incident command. Medical incident command speaks for itself. Is also known as the medical or EMS branch of the incident command system. Primary roles are to triage. You might say, Irene, what is triage? Triage comes from the French word meaning to sort. Who do I sort? Well, if I have all these people, who is the most critical? Who is not critical? Who is somebody in between? So again, in a mass casualty incident or a disaster, who are those that have life threats that could die, okay, from their injuries or illness, if you will, or I have somebody that has some minor issue. They don't even need to go to the hospital. So to triage is to sort those people that need immediate care from EMS and transport to the hospital, those that are not too bad, and of course those that do not need to be transported to the hospital anytime soon, if at all. To triage means to sort. Okay, weed out what is and what isn't an emergency. Treatments. Who needs what treatment? I see somebody bleeding profusely. I go to them first. Okay. I see somebody that is struggling to breathe. I have to go and help them breathe. Okay. Or unfortunately, if I see somebody that has a mortal injury, basically they're dead, I leave them dead. And I say, really? Won't you try to save them? Well, it's that bad. If you have, let's say, their brain blown open, there's nothing to save. Okay? Make sense? They're not breathing. They're not moving. They're basically dead. So that's part of the sorting. The dead versus the non-dead. And transport of the injured people. So we're going to break this down a little bit. EMS branch. Triage, to sort. If you look at the far left, triage and tag all patients. What do? We tag those people with different colors. Okay? It could be paper. It could be strips of colored ribbons. We're going to see some later because I'm actually going to play a video for you guys after I give you a break. I want you guys to actually see how this works in a video, training video. It's really, really good. It's a little lengthy, but I think you guys will understand it when you see this in action. Treatment. Okay. Who needs to be treated now? There is no later because they're probably going to die if I let them bleed to death in another minute or two because they've lost a significant amount of blood. Transportation. Who is going to be transported first? Well, the people that are critical, that are salvageable, barely, are going to be the ones that go directly to the hospital, right into the OR, and get patched up. So basically, that's how it goes. Okay. Triage supervisor, again, we have to sort, prioritize patients, counting how many patients we have and who is going where. You can't take, let's say, 10, 20 people and send them all to the same hospital. Okay. Why? Because now you're going to overload the resources at the hospital. They'll be overwhelmed and they may not be able to manage all of these bodies at once. Okay. So what we do is kind of like spread the wealth, if you will. So treatment supervisor, what we're going to do, locate, sets up the treatment area. And these colors come in 4 colors, basically. We have, give me a second, Michelle. It comes in black for the dead, corpses, basically. We have the red, life threats, where the person can die, okay, from their injuries. We also have the yellow, that is, you know what, they're not critical. They have a life threat, but they can hold on a little bit. And then we have the green. Green is like walking wounded. Okay. In other words, they may even not want to go to a hospital because they don't have any immediate life threats. Okay. Yes, Michelle, what is your question?
Yeah, so you were explaining people going to hospitals and sending them to different hospitals. Like example might be like with coronavirus. I remember there were a lot of hospitals that weren't able to take people. And that could be an example of hospitals not being, sending people to different hospitals to kind of spread the wealth, especially with the healthcare system. Is that a good example, kind of what you're going for?
Perfect example. Perfect. Okay. So this is how it's done. So the treatment supervisor, quickly treat what needs to be treated, the life threats, and take it from there. Once the treatment is done, now we have to transport them. Who needs to go to the hospital first? Well, obviously the most critical of patients need to go to the hospital first. Okay, so that's a given. We have the ambulances all lined up, your paramedics, your EMTs, and one by one they'll be taking these patients to area hospitals. Okay, hospital A, hospital B, hospital C, hospital D. Like we said before, spread the wealth. Okay, and certain facilities, certain hospitals are specialty hospitals, which means they specialize in one thing more than another. For instance, you may have hospital A that specializes in burns. It's a burn center. So if I have a patient that is severely burned, where do you think I should send them? To the appropriate facility, which would be that burn center. Okay, so the transportation supervisor is aware of where to send the right patient to the right hospital and how many need to go to that hospital. Okay, staging supervisor should be assigned when seen to require a multi-vehicle or multi-agency response. Now think of it this way. You have all of these ambulances, okay? A whole line of them, like a parade, if you will. They're all lined up. The staging supervisor now takes that emergency vehicle, has permission to enter the scene, and only drive in a directed area. What does that mean? You come in this way, you're going out that way. Okay? Why? Because I have the influx of traffic coming in, and I want to make sure we just keep it moving in one direction so it doesn't become all chaotic. Who's going in which direction? Okay? Also, the staging area should be established away from the scene. What does that mean? The people that need to go here should be placed away from the scene, away from any hazards, away from the chaos, if you will. We want to make sure we bring them to a safe area until they're loaded up in the ambulance and taken to the appropriate facility. Physicians on the scene, nurses on the scene, just about the hospital staff coming out of the hospitals and out to that location. Why? Because believe it or not, physicians can do far more than any EMT. They can do far more than any paramedic. And most oftentimes, if there's a physician on the scene, they oversee what EMS people are doing and how they're doing it. And if they need any guidance, any help, there is a physician there to assist, to inform, to delegate, okay, as a medical professional. So it's very, very important to have as highly trained professionals as possible. Rehabilitation supervisor. Now, this establishes an area that provides protection from the elements and situation, okay, away from the elements, hot, cold, rain, okay, a safe haven, if you will. Rehabilitation is where the responders' needs are met, okay, because these people need to rest. They need fluid, they need food, drink, they need a cot, a bed to sleep on, okay? And this is where rehabilitation supervisor is to make sure the manpower that is working is adequately fed, hydrated, and rested to get the job done. Because we're not robots, we're humans, okay? Our bodies will break down when you stretch them, if you push them beyond their capabilities. And this is something the supervisor or rehab supervisor will make sure does not happen, because that is a safety issue also, right? We don't want people, breaking down on us, getting sick, injured because they push themselves too far for too long. Okay? And of course, notice the bottom line where it says we're looking for signs of stress. Stress is that silent monster that creeps up on you when you least expect it. Stress is never a good thing. Okay? Stress kills. That's why the number one killer of the adult male and female is the heart. Why? Because we live a very stressful life, and the stress basically is what's killing us. Okay? You probably don't realize it, but just about anything that we do has a stressor behind it. Even now as I'm talking to you, you're a little stressed. How much of this can I remember? How much of this am I going to be tested on? How much of this do I need to write down? So right now you guys are, to some extent, in stress mode. Okay? Extrication, just give me a couple of seconds and I will be giving you a break. Extrication and special rescue. Let's talk about this because we talked about it yesterday. It determines the type of equipment and resources needed for the situation. And we had this beautiful picture yesterday, the jaws of life. Remember that pointy metallic thing? We said it works on hydraulics and it's able to literally tear metal apart, rip things apart. And this is again one of those situations where we need the manpower and equipment, okay, to extricate, depending on the situation. Usually functions under the EMS branch of the incident command system. So extrication and special rescue still falls under the emergency medical system or EMS. Okay? This unfortunately is the morgue. This would be your dead people that have been tagged or taped black. Black meaning dead. Okay? And what we want to do is make sure we take the corpse, if you will, the deceased, out of visual field of the other people, because you know it as well as I do, looking at body parts, dead people, corpses, not the best for one's psyche. It doesn't do anything for your psychological well-being. So what we do is basically have the morgue supervisor that will be handling the deceased. Okay? The morgue area should be out of view of the living patients and other responders. And you can understand why. It is an emotional overload, it's a sensory overload, and it's something that is quite traumatic, and you can actually wind up with this PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay? I can't speak for you folks, but I've seen many corpses, both whole and in parts, and once in a while I get a flashback, and it's not pretty. It bothers me. I've seen it throughout my 22-year career, and it's not pretty. Okay? And basically what we do is we kind of like suppress that memory. I can't speak for you folks. If you've ever seen a dead body, but it's not pretty. It's not something that anybody enjoys, unless you're what? Like a medical examiner, somebody that, a funeral, worker where you have to do this as part of your job. Otherwise, nobody's looking forward to it. Okay, with that said, let me just hit one more. Mass casualty incident, I think it speaks for itself. We already spoke about this. Different protocols, the clear and MCI. I think I'm just going to reiterate everything I just said is all here. See, request additional resources, triage procedures. This is pretty much a review of what I just spoke about at great length. Here's the word triage again, coming from the French, to sort. Just remember, that's what it is. Okay? Separate, divvy up. Who is what? The dead, the critical, the not critical, and the walking wounded, which don't even need medical care. Okay? The 4 common categories, the ones that we just spoke about. Okay? Immediate, which is red, life threats. Delayed, yellow. They can hold on. They can wait for, transporting to the hospital. Minor, green, hold. Don't worry about them. And of course, you have the black. Okay? So at this point, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm going to do is stop the share. And when we come back, I will be showing you an MCI action or training video. It's going to be, I don't know, about 15 minutes or so. Not going to be too lengthy, but this is the appropriate time to show it to you, how this is played out and how it's panned out. Okay? Does anybody have any questions? Let me just open up chat. Professor, the audio keeps cutting in and out when you speak. I don't know why that is occurring. My speaker is on, my video is on. So, Alan, if you're still having that issue, maybe you want to log out and come right back. Okay, likely
No, it's good
connectivity
now.
issues.
Thank you.
Oh, okay, perfect. So we resolved that. How do we handle burn injuries? Well, we're not going yet into trauma as of yet, but burn injuries, there are different types of burns, different treatments for burns. So we're not going into trauma just yet. We're just starting with the outskirts of the EMS system. But I will be talking about it at length, and I will be talking about protocol. Okay, right now I have 6:57. Why don't we return in about, I would say, 5 after 7. Fair enough? I will see you then, okay? And I will pop up that video for you. Okay. See you later. see. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I have Elizabeth Thompson raised her hand.
Hi.
Elizabeth, what's your question?
Okay, so my question is, I noticed that on the PowerPoint or the slides, it said that people who are labeled Black they're either dead or likely to die. How do...
Dead. No, they are dead. There is no likely. The red is going to die unless we treat them immediately. So I apologize for that little glitch. Dead is dead, which means it's not salvageable. I found them dead. They're staying dead. In other words, we don't even bother with them. You know why? Because you cannot fix the dead. It's beyond our capacity. We're going to salvage those people that are salvageable, which are the red. The yellow can go into the red unless we kind of like watch them closely and treat any possible life threats that may come up. And the green is like, don't even worry about them. They're not going anywhere. They're not going to die. So that is the category. Now, I have this video. Hopefully it's going to come up quickly enough and I will share it with you. So hopefully I have all of you guys here with me because I just pulled it up and I want to make sure we can share it. Okay, so let's see. Keep your fingers crossed. And there it is. Enjoy the show. Okay. And let's go ahead and start it up. Hopefully I can. Okay, come on. Oh. Wouldn't you know, right? I get all excited now it doesn't want to start. Let's see. Hold on a second. Okay. Hopefully you guys can see this.
Who's in charge of guns?
This one's ready, yeah.
Engine 55, Medic 496, pedestrian hit by vehicle, Blavik Boulevard and Academy Drive, command point.
Ventura Engine 55 is on scene. Single vehicle rollover into a crowd.
Ventura copies, Engine 55 on scene. Single vehicle rollover into a crowd.
All right, guys, let's go ahead and start triage. Get back with what you need. Ventura Engine 55 with a size up. So we have approximately 10 victims, 1 trapped. Upgrade this to a heavy rescue response and have 1 engine, 1 ambulance, and 1 EMS supervisor. This is a level 1 MCI.
Ventura copy, Engine 55 on scene, reporting approximately 10 victims with 1 patient trapped. Copy on upgrading this to a heavy rescue. Copy additional resources. Copy level 1 MCI. This will be the bloody incident.
If you can hear my voice, you can walk, come to me. If you can hear my voice, you can walk, come to me. Are you okay?
Medic Engine 5, Engine 61, Truck 54, Squad 50, Medic 504, Medic 497, Medic 693, EMS 44, EMS 51, Battalion 12, Battalion 54. Respond to the Blevy incident, level 1 MCI, Blevy Boulevard at Academy Drive, command 5.
Sit her down, please. Sit her down. Have a seat.
Okay, do me a favor. I'm going to put this around your hand, okay?
Sorry, here, real quick.
got an MCI going. We got approximately 10 patients. So I'd like to assign you MedCom, and I'll have your partner assist my crew with triage.
Just around your arm, okay? Hold pressure on that wound, okay?
Hey, Chief. You know, we've got a level 1 MCI going, about 10 patients right now, no specific information yet. I've assigned MedCom and the other medic I've assigned to assist my crew with triage.
Cap, why don't you take on triage unit leader responsibility? With that, I'd like a more accurate count on the number of victims and their categories, and oversee the movement of all those patients into the treatment area. Here are your folders. Go to work, and I'll back you up with the group soup as soon as I can. You okay? Okay.
It's your arm here, okay?
We're about to help you in a minute, okay?
VCMC base at 1135, go ahead.
AVCMC base, this is medic 491 with a level 1 MCI. How do you copy?
Loud and clear, 491, go ahead.
Okay, we are currently at the intersection of Durley and Post with approximately 12 victims that are in the process of being triaged.
Copy all that, 491. I'll start calling for bed availability. Please call us back when the triage is complete. VCMC clear for now at 1136.
All right, guys, what do you have?
I have 3 minor, 1 delayed.
I have 2 immediates.
2 immediates. I have 1 delayed and 1 deceased.
1 delayed and 1 deceased.
All right, Chief, I've got some more information for you. I have a total of 2 immediates, 2 delayed, 3 minors, and we have 1 deceased.
2 immediate, 2 delayed, 3 minor, 1 DOA for a total of 8 patients.
Correct. You know, I could probably use another engine company, especially for the immediates.
I'll get you 1 more engine, so go ahead and go back to work, and I'll call these spots as soon as I can.
All right, copy that.
Ventura, Levy IC, triage is complete. We have 2 immediates, 2 delayed, 3 minors, 1 DOA for a total patient count of 8, and MedCom is established. I'm assigning you as the treatment unit leader. Your vest and clipboard are on the hood of my vehicle. I need you to identify and establish the treatment area and get back to me with resource requests. Hi Mark, I'd like you to take on patient transportation unit leader. We have 2 immediate, 2 delayed, 3 minor, 1 DOA, so we have 7 to transport. And we have a total of 4 ambulances either on scene or en route. Let me know what additional resources you need. MedCom is in place with 491, and I have a vest and clipboard up front for you.
VCMC base, go ahead.
AVCMC base, this is medic 491 is MedCom. This is with the follow-up call on our MCI in Camarillo. How do you copy?
Alright, copy you loud and clear, go ahead, 491.
Medic Engine 2, I'm assigning you to the treatment unit. Report to Captain 61, he is the treatment unit leader.
You're going to be ambulance coordinator, and I need you to identify an ambulance staging area.
Hi guys, I want you working ALS in the treatment unit. Report to Captain 61, he is the treatment unit leader.
Ambulance coordinator, send 2 ALS rigs to the patient loading area.
Go ahead and move into the patient loading area.
Alright, you guys ready? 2, 3. Alright, you guys ready? 2, 3.
They're to St. John. John Road, they're expecting you to contact ticket. All right.
Go ahead and sit at the end there. Okay. Yeah.
Levy IC. All patients transported. Incident complete. All equipment released.
One ambulance and one EMS supervisor. This is a level 1 MCI.
Ventor copy engine 55 on scene reporting.
Go to work and I'll back you up with the group soup as soon as I can. Can you hear me? You okay?
Yeah, I took a walk with it.
Okay, okay. It's your arm here, okay? Someone's gonna be about to help you in a minute, okay?
AVCMC base, this is Medic 491 with a level 1 MCI. How do you copy?
All right, guys, what do you have?
I have 3.
Hi, Mark. I'd like you to.
You're going to be ambulance coordinator, and I need you to identify an ambulance staging area.
I didn't think you go to St. John. St. John's out there expecting you to make contact.
Go ahead and sit at the end there.
Yeah. Ventura, Levy IC. All patients transported. Incident complete. All equipment released.
Okay. Pretty emotional. Pretty emotional. So you just saw it in a nutshell how important it is to have this coordination, who's doing what, and notice the poor fellow that had his head open immediately tagged as black. But one thing I don't think was clear, he actually tilted the person's head to see if they start breathing. We only give one shot. We tilt, open up the airway, get the tongue away from the back of the throat. If they should start breathing, they're very much alive. Does that make sense? So in that case of the deceased, unfortunately this person did not breathe on their own, therefore they were black tagged. Okay? Did you like it? Pretty good, pretty emotional, right? Okay, so I showed to all of my classes because it brings some three-dimensional reality. I could talk about this until I'm blue in the face, but when you see it like this in action, it all makes sense. Okay, so I'm glad you enjoyed it, or not, but it is very traumatizing for any first responder to come to this call. So let's pick up where we left off. Okay, unfortunately, this didn't go through the first time. Yes.
This is Michelle.
Yes.
I did have one quick question. There was a thing in the video about AMR. What does that mean? AMR, is that
the company name, the ambulance company name?
Something something? Oh, it's the company.
American Medical Response. It's the name of the company. Yeah. Okay. Okay. AMR is an ambulance company. Okay. Very good. And let's continue. Let's continue. You should be able to see this now. Yay! Come on. Come on. Good. 4 common categories. We just saw it in action. So I'm not going to waste your time reiterating everything that you just saw. Okay? It's all there. Now, I will stop. Jump start triage. If you notice in this video, there were no children involved, right? Okay. When you have children, it says here the jump start triage. Okay, you know, like how kids like to jump all the time. That's why they call it jump. It's intended for the use in children under the age of 8 or under 100 pounds. Now you might say, Irene, how am I supposed to know? Quite honestly, I think we're adults. We could tell a child is a child, an adult is an adult. Okay. So begin by identifying the walking wounded. Same thing like the adults. Okay. Children are always trying to run away from danger when they're scared. Any child that can run, that can walk, is a green. Is a green. They have the capacity, the strength to walk. That would be considered a green. So it's pretty much the same way. Several differences within the respiratory status assessment compared to START. What does that mean? Children most often die. That's a bad, ugly word, but it's true, because of respiratory inadequacy, which means the child is not getting enough oxygen for that high demanding brain. Now, with adults, we can pretty much survive without oxygen far longer than a child, which is interesting because we're fully developed. A child has a dire need for more oxygenation of their developing body. Okay, so the bottom line says access the approximate rate of respirations, in other words, how fast they're breathing, hemodynamic status. What does that mean? Overall, are they circulating? Do they look okay or not? And neurological status. What does that mean? Their mental status. How is their mental status? Are they alert? Are they crying? Can they speak to you? Can they tell you where it hurts? What are they feeling? So that's basically how it goes. So I'm looking at how the child presents. I'm looking at the effort of breathing, and I'm also looking at the overall picture. Is this child sick or not sick? Severely injured or not severely injured? So that would be a jump start triage for the pediatric patient or child that is under the age of 8 or 100 pounds. Okay, I don't have a video for it. There isn't one that exists. I did look, but it doesn't exist. And I personally would like to reach out to these people and say, hey, what about children? They're out there. Think of daycare centers, think of schools, think of camps, right? Where you have a lot of children. So I think there should be a training video out there also with this component. So now that I said it, maybe it's going to happen. Or maybe they're filming it right now as we speak. Okay, Triage special considerations. Now look at this. Patients who are hysterical, disruptive to the rescue effort may need to be handled as immediate priority, as a red, because they're kind of like freaking out. And that is a danger unto itself. We have seen people that are so emotionally out of control where they could actually put themselves into cardiac arrest, give themselves a heart attack, they can give themselves a stroke. Think about it. It can happen, especially if they have pre-existing conditions. So this is a danger unto itself. The emotional, okay, overload. Okay? So think of that. Now, the very bottom line says identify patients as contaminated or decontaminated in hazardous material situations. Now, what we saw, there were no hazardous materials, right? The car was not leaking, it did not explode, there was no fumes, no toxicity around, so that was a controlled environment. Now, if you have hazardous material, you would have to call for those additional resources, wait for them to go in, bring the victims out, decontaminate them, and then transfer the care to you. So there's an extra component in that triaging, if you will. Okay? Okay. Destination, we talked about that. The red always go first, immediate. As you saw, the gentleman had his arm crushed. That limb is going to be severed. It may even be amputated. That's how bad it was. Yellow, if you saw the lady that had the abdominal issue, bleeding on her stomach, she was fairly okay, but if we leave that injury unattended, she can go into the red zone, which means she could actually die. You also had the yellow, the green that we spoke about, not even a consideration. We'll get to them soon enough. And of course there was the red. Okay, this we already spoke about. Okay, what is a disaster? A disaster is a widespread event. Okay, disasters, like I said, are happening around us as we speak. But to you and I, it disrupts the functions and resources of a community. It doesn't matter if it's a small community or big community. We're talking basically big, okay, magnitude. And it threatens lives and property. What type of property? Okay, any type of property where we have, work, living quarters, okay? And this is something that it's either most oftentimes what? Natural or man-made. A disaster is a disaster. Some disasters may not involve personal injuries, but many disasters, floods, fires, hurricanes, result in widespread injuries, okay? So we've had the unfortunate experience of hurricanes. Hurricanes are pretty bad. Tornadoes, think about them. And of course, they do widespread. Okay. You guys were around with Superstorm Sandy, remember? That was pretty catastrophic. So that would be considered a disaster. Your role is to respond, okay, and report to the IC. We spoke about this already, and we saw it in action. Now, because this was pretty much man-made, the rollover of the cars striking all these people, a natural disaster would be Mother Nature, if you will. Okay, when you arrive at a possible hazmat, hazardous material, what do we say? Uphill, upwind, uphill, upwind. I can't say that enough. You're definitely not going into the hot zone, as we call it, the epicenter of the problem. You're going to stay back in the cold zone, where it's safe, and you're going to wait from the hot zone to go to the warm zone, get decontaminated, and now come to the cold zone. Only when they have been cleared of any potential threats, only at that point are you going to be receiving these people. And many times these people may be butt naked with nothing more than a flimsy plastic sheet around their bodies. Okay? So, rushing into an unsafe scene can be catastrophic. We don't need to add more problems to the already existing problem. because if you run into something that's unsafe, you became part of the problem. Okay, we said that time and time again. If overcome, you'll be unable to assist others, and you are requiring emergency care for yourself, and you will further strain the system that has already been stretched to its limits. Okay, hazardous material, again, we just spoke about this. Areas of training or expertise or experience, we talked about the commander, okay, is the one that is most experienced at that point in time. Once they have maybe another person coming that has more training, more expertise, more field experience, they will now undertake that commander position, if you will. Okay, so we spoke about that already. Hazardous material, anything that poses a threat to human life. Anything that poses threat to human life. The hazardous material may be a solid, it may be a liquid, it may be a gas like a noxious fume, okay? Anything at all that poses threat to life, hazardous material. Hazardous material, okay? What do we do? A truck, a train crash in which a substance is leaking from the truck, a car, the tanker, anything at all that is leaking. Think of it this way. It could be fuel. Or what if it's a hazardous material? Can you as an EMT from a distance tell, is that fuel? Or is that a container that has a hazardous material, a volatile material, maybe explosive material, right? It's out there. So you will not be able to tell with the naked eye what's what. We're not trained to do that. But you will be calling for hazmat. Okay, hazardous material you have to call. A leak, fire, other emergency, an industrial plant, you have to look where this stuff is coming from. If it's from a structure, let's say a warehouse, a building that looks to be industrial, take it to be industrial. Think of it as being the worst case scenario, okay? And treat it as such. A leak or rupture of an underground natural pipe, okay? Natural gas has no scent to it. I hope you know that, folks. The gas that you get into your homes has been infused with that rotten egg smell, and that is intentional. But natural gas, pure gas, has no smell at all, but yet it's there. Okay, so this is the danger that we have to face. If you suspect anything, let's say you hear a hissing sound, you hear it, or somebody's like, what's going on? What's going on? That already tells you there's something lurking in the area. Not to be paranoid, but just to be vigilant, aware of your surroundings. Okay, deterioration of underground fuel tanks, things that have been submerged into the ground. Think of septic tanks, right? Many places have septic tanks where they collect fecal matter and urine. They do exist. Now, that, believe it or not, that methane gas that is building up in this tank, pretty nasty, I know. But this gas that is building up, the methane, is pretty volatile. If you put a match, a spark to that methane, guess what's going to happen? Yeah, it will go up in flames. So something as simple as a septic tank has the potential, okay, is a hazardous material, but has the potential to cause a lot of problems to the community. Okay, the bottom line, a motor vehicle crash resulting in a ruptured gas tank. Okay, and think outside the box. Any number of things can have the potential to cause harm. Occupancy location. Where do you want to be? As far away from it as possible. Where is the location of the problem? Okay, you need to identify to your dispatcher what you see, how you see it, where it is, and what do you notice? Do you see smoke, a noxious fume, leaking, a fire, That is what you need to state to your dispatcher, because your dispatcher needs to relay that information. Okay? And if you need additional resources, of course. If this seems to be like an MCI situation, we're definitely calling it as an MCI. Again, state what you see. Okay? Any senses at all. We use all of our senses. All of those senses that we have acquired growing up. Okay? You see something, you smell something, those are your senses. They kick in and you make sure that you identify what you're smelling. If your eyes are getting teary-eyed, burning, there's something causing that, and you state that. That's hazardous material. Any containers. What type of containers? Now, do we train you in the different types of containers that are out there, whether transporting or stationary? The answer is no. But containers need to have labels. Why do we need labels? To identify what the contents of that container is. Okay? Container volume. How much is in that container? Bulk speaks for itself. A lot. Okay, these are pretty big. Okay, and what does this mean? That means there's a lot of material in here. I don't know what it is. Okay, but it's something that will cause alarm if this stuff is leaking, if this stuff is smoking, if there is, again, an odor that's being emitted from this location. Right away, I get very, very suspicious. A, it's hazardous material. I don't have to identify it. I stay back. Okay? Look at this one, even bigger still. Can you see the placards? Can you see the writing? All of that is identifiable of what the container has as its contents. You see placards. It also identifies what the contents are. And how do we know? How do we know? How do we read this? Well, I will tell you a little bit later. Non-bulk storage vessels, what can go into this? Anything at all. Anything at all. Okay? I don't know what it is, but there's something in it that may have the potential to be harmful. Okay? Hopefully not, but we don't know. Just showing you again, just a few examples. Again, by law, anything at all that poses even a potential threat to human life, to animal life, okay, or to the environment, hazardous to the environment like water, air, or soil, needs to be labeled. It needs to be labeled, okay? It doesn't mean that these labels can't be tampered with. It doesn't mean these labels can be removed, covered, okay? And that is when you now have something sinister going on. Why would anybody want to remove, deface, okay, a placard or a label? Think about it. So that is something where we're going to spill into like terrorism, weapons of mass destruction. But again, everything needs to be quote unquote identifiable if it is potentially hazardous or is hazardous. Is it flammable or not? So we definitely need some sort of labeling so we can identify whether we approach it, we touch it, we use it. Okay? Now, this speaks for itself. I see flames. You see the red ones? That means that it is flammable. Okay, that's a no-brainer. The others, okay, I don't see flames, I don't see red, so it tells me it's not flammable. Got it? So that's the difference. Now, to me, as long as I see one flame, that's good enough for me. I'm a little concerned. I want to stay away from it. Okay? Now, hazardous material warning labels. This here comes from our emergency guidebook. We do have an emergency guidebook in all ambulances by law, what we call the Orange Book, that has just about every hazardous material that we know of in this book. Okay, and I'm going to show you the book in a moment. but I just want you to see how busy this looks. How do I identify this? Well, just by looking at a couple of things here, I'm just looking at nothing more than the title. What does it read? Hazardous material warning labels. In other words, you see any one of these, warning, it's dangerous. That's a no-brainer, okay? Danger. You see the danger? Anything danger. Anything that's radioactive. If you see on the left-hand side, it says poison. You also see the skull with the crossbones, death, okay? So it's pretty much self-explanatory. The Department of Transportation, that's what DOT stands for. The Department of Transportation system does not require that all chemical shipments be marked. Why? Because they're not hazardous. If they're not hazardous, why bother labeling it, right? You guys get packages at home. Are they labeled hazardous? No, because they're not. So in this respect, that's why they're not labeled, because they don't pose a threat, okay? In most cases, the package or cargo must contain a certain number of hazardous material volume-wise before a label needs to be placed on it. You see how that goes? In other words, because of the amount, only then do I need a placard or something to identify it. If it's in small amounts, it doesn't pose a problem. Some chemicals are so hazardous that shipping any amount requires the use of labels or placards, meaning it is so concentrated, even a little amount can pose a health threat, not only to individuals that are handling it, but also to the community if this gets out or leaks out. Okay? This is what I want you to memorize. And I mean memorize. This is what we call in the field, the EMTs call this the orange book. It has an orange cover to it, but it's really known as the Emergency Response Guidebook. Please memorize this. All ambulances by law must have this, okay? And it's usually in the driver compartment, in the front of the ambulance. Why? So it's readily available for the driver, readily available to the EMT partner, if you will. So these are updated every so often, every few years. It says here every 3 to 4 years. Well, sometimes longer than that. When we come out with new materials, and you know, chemistry is always evolving. There's always a new chemical. There's always something new. Think of pharmacology. Think of medications, right? It seems like every millisecond there's a new medication coming out. So chemicals are chemicals, and this is no different. So you need to know the Emergency Response Guidebook has a list of all possible chemicals that you may have to either identify or that you see, and you can actually look it up in that guidebook from a distance. Yes, Michelle?
Yeah, I have a question. So you're saying we should memorize this entire book, which is, I mean, it looks like there's about 4,000 chemicals in it. Should we know all of them, or what do you mean by that?
Okay. Memorize what it looks like and the name. You can't possibly memorize the book. Even the person that put this together would not know the entire book. Now, what I'm saying, just look at the color. It's orange, and it is the Emergency Response Guidebook for any chemical that is out there that poses a threat to the community, to EMS, to any first responder. Okay, I'm not saying memorize the book. I want you to look at this picture and have an imprint of what it looks like. Okay? That's all I'm asking you guys to do. Oh, that was a good question,
Okay.
though. Okay. Also, when you are found, let's say, at a storage plant, industrial plant, factory, all of these facilities, these buildings, to some extent have something within them that can pose a danger, whether it's equipment-wise or supplies that they use or any chemicals that they use for whatever it's being used. They must have by law also what we call the Material Safety Data Sheet, or MSDS, that first title there. Now, what does this mean? Well, let's say we are at a factory, okay, for fabrics, and now we are using certain dyes, chemicals, to color these fabrics. Now, these chemicals, once they're mixed, they're only meant to be used for fabrics, right? Now, these chemicals are stored, but should these chemicals, for whatever reason, get into people's faces, such as the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the skin, the clothing, they pose a threat. Why? This chemical was not meant to be used on humans. It was not meant to go into the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the skin, breathed in, so to speak. So should a chemical that is used for whatever purpose should become or pose a threat, a leak, ignite, okay, start smoking, that is an immediate threat to human life. So we stop, we reach for this material safety data sheet, and in it, it tells us what the chemicals are that are in the location. It gives us the treatment and the antidote for the problem. Think of it as a first aid guidebook. So the material safety data sheet by law must be there readily available for anyone to be able to reach, like a first aid kit, open it, read it, and find the antidote or the treatment, the cure for this problem, for this chemical, whether it's a solid, whether it's a liquid, whether it's a gas. It poses a threat. So the MSDS, as we call it for short, is there to safeguard human life. And this is something that OSHA, okay, who's OSHA? To keep people safe, okay? So this is something that is by law that you need to memorize. What is the MSDS? It is that first aid guidebook for treatment for the problem at hand, for the chemicals that the people were exposed to, whether it's a solid, a liquid, a gas, okay? Memorize this, very important. Material safety data sheet. Shipping papers. Okay, so let's say this factory, this facility has received shipping papers. They have the bulk, whatever the chemical is. The shipping papers identify what was shipped, how much was shipped, and where it was shipped from. Why? Because you don't want to be receiving something that's unknown. It's like, okay, what's in this? What is this? You can't have that unanswered, okay, field, because that unto itself poses a threat. How do you know this is not a bomb? How do you know this is not a booby trap? Right? Why not? Why not? So the whole principle here is anything that is not labeled, identifiable, we would consider that to be a hazard, and we would immediately call the authorities to come and investigate. Got it? So this is something where you absolutely must have something received with shipping papers with it. Okay? Either the driver has it or it's already on the packaging itself. Okay? So I'm probably going to remind you that if you are, let's say, traveling, and this is going back a number of years ago, they used to have commercials. They said, well, if you see something suspicious, a package, or somebody leaving a package, or leaving a suitcase, or a duffel bag, and walking away, remember those days? They want you to report it. Okay? You tell the person, hey, it's like, and they're like, no, it's okay. As they walk away or run away, you're like, uh-oh, what's in that bag? I, as a New Yorker, would think the worst possible scenario. I would think there's a bomb in there, ready to go off any moment. And you should think the same way too, because it may in fact be. So, this one here, Chemtrec is operated by the American Chemistry Council, big agency. It serves as an invaluable technical information resource for first responders of all disciplines, meaning PD, fire department, EMS, who are called upon to respond to a chemical incident. Now, yes, we're coming to the chemical incident, but we're not going into the hot zone. What do we say? Uphill, upwind, away from the problem, okay? And this is where Chemtrec will come in, okay, and get the job done, okay? We have to be very, very careful of these situations. That's what we call hazmat. They're part of this. Identification, despite the availability of resources, identification may still be difficult. Wear and tear, if something's out in the elements, right? Again, what's going to happen, the label or the markings can slowly degrade, deteriorate. So again, stay away, okay? Stay away. Call for hazmat. We talked about this. The use of the ambulance's public address system, what does that mean? We have 2 radios on board an ambulance. One where we speak to our dispatcher, like the one we have on our person. We also have another radio, which is a loudspeaker to the community. You know, like, let's say PD, right? Police want to pull a car over for whatever. They blew a red light or a stop sign. What do? They go on the loudspeaker. They talk on the radio, okay? Pull over, as an example. So we have the capacity also to do that. So again, what you want to do is alert the community through that radio, which is similar to a loudspeaker, of the hazard, Tell people, go back in your homes. There's hazardous material, okay? PD can do it. Hazmat can do it. Fire department can do it. You as EMS can do it, okay? And again, you want to make sure we don't have any casualties, okay, subjected to this, because the more people that are harmed, the more people we need to treat, more lives may be lost, okay? And you establish a control zone, which means as far away as possible. Perfect example, the hot zone is where the problem is. The warm zone is where the decontamination is being done by your specialty trained hazmat teams. And where is Irene? In the cold zone, okay? And everybody else that is a first responder, they're in the cold zone. Specialty trained are in the warm zone, that have extricated, that have removed, that have salvaged the people that were affected, okay? Okay, we talked about this. Roles of the EMT, we talked about this also. Okay, the NFPA 704, hazardous material classification. You don't have to memorize this NFPA 704, but just so you know, because it is a classification for hazardous material, we're just sharing that information with you. Now, the classification is the health hazard or toxicity level, the fire hazard that it poses, the chemical reactive hazard, because some chemicals react with air, some react with water, some react with pressure or temperature. The higher the temperature, the more unstable the chemical. It may ignite. And special hazards. So that is now a classification that is out there for identifying all of this that we just spoke about. Okay, what I want to do is, before I continue, because it's already 8 o'clock, let me just take a moment here, because you guys have been very, very quiet and respectful, and I appreciate it. I would just like to quickly ask you guys if you have any immediate questions right here and now. Otherwise, I want to take a 5-minute break. Anything at all? No? Okay. So would you like a 5-minute or a 10-minute break? Because it is 8 o'clock. Maybe some of you are getting hungry. Some of you want to grab a bite to eat. What do you want? 5 or 10 minutes?
10, please, Irene. This is Michelle. 10 would be great.
Okay. 10 it is. I grant you 10 minutes, which means, okay, 10 after 8. Fair enough? Okay. I have a question from Janelle. Let me go ahead and ask. I have a question about the email list. Okay, what is the question? Okay, if you want to type it for me, by all means, I'll stay behind. Okay.
Oh, hi, Miss Quinn. I think talking, I think, is faster. I was just gonna ask about, one of my friends from the class, she sent me a screenshot of the email that you sent last night.
Right.
About today's Zoom link. I didn't get it because I saw that you spelled my name incorrectly on my email.
Really? Because that's what was given to me. So you never received it? Did you receive any of the invites?
I did from Mr. Raboni like yesterday, but I
Mhm.
didn't get, so I'm still not getting your emails because my email spelled wrong, but I just emailed you about my correct email. So if you could check your
Okay.
email.
Absolutely. I will go back and make that correction after tonight's lecture, though. Is that okay? Because I need to send out the invites for tomorrow night. I think I already did, but I will resend them. Just wait. I will resend them just the same because I see you guys tonight. I see you. I see you tomorrow.
Yeah, you see us tomorrow.
Okay. I see
But I
you
just wanted
tomorrow.
to let you know before you send out that email tonight. You
Okay.
can fix mine before.
Yeah, okay. My apologies. I really feel bad, but I will definitely do that. Okay. I will definitely do that. So my apologies once again. Yeah. So the fact that you sent it out to me, I think we're in good shape. I think we're in good shape.
Okay,
Okay.
your
So
email is okay for something.
43CWI. I
Yes,
will go ahead. You want me to write it out? Chat?
No,
Oh, just
I
oh,
sent
you got it.
already.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little weird. I know, but I've had it for so many years, and it does have some meaning, personal meaning behind it. But again, it's OK43CWI@gmail. Okay,
Okay,
we're
thank
good.
you. I believe hopefully you got it. Yeah, I sent it already, but yeah.
Perfect. Okay, and if not, I will let you know. Okay, it is 8:04. I will be back in about 6 minutes or so. Okay. Okay. See you then.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, shall we continue? Okay. Let's see. So we have the share screen. Pick up where we left off. Um, come on. Okay. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Continuing with the hazardous material, of course. We're going to break this down a little further. Toxicity level. There are 4 levels, which of course we're going to break down as we go through the PowerPoint. It measures the risk to human life or health that a substance poses, okay, as soon as you come into contact with it, whether it's on the skin, whether it's inhaled, okay. We don't want this to basically kill, if at all possible. Therefore, we have this level system where we know it's a 1, 2, 3, 4. We also have other levels, but for now, at our training level, we only have to go to the most simplest, let's say, of approaches. I want you to look at these levels. It actually starts with the 0. The 0 is like nothing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. I like to say 1, 2, 3, 4 because zeros doesn't exist. Little or no hazard. Why even put it down as a list? But it is. Notice number 4. Minimal exposure causes death. Look at number 3. Extremely hazardous. Full protection is needed. Number 2. Slightly hazardous. Scuba gear is needed. Level 1. Slightly hazardous. Also scuba gear. Okay. The scuba equipment. Now you might say, Reen, how am I supposed to know what's what? No. This is what hazmat or HazTac, those trained individuals that suit up, that gown up, know the different levels. Okay, so let's take a look at this. PPE stands for personal protective equipment. Everybody on the job is wearing PPE. EMS wears gloves. We have a mask. Okay, we're going to wear a mask. We're going to put on gloves. Sometimes we have a jumpsuit. We actually have suits that we can wear. Bunker gear, turnout gear as we call it, like the fire department. Okay, so if you want to write this down, memorize it. Level A, alpha, as the most hazardous of all levels. It requires full encapsulation of the body, which means not a single shred of the body is exposed. It has to be chemical resistant, protective clothing that provides full protection, as well as a breathing apparatus. That's what SCUBA stands for, that SCBA, that's SCUBA, which means you have a tank of oxygen, you're wearing a mask, you're wearing a full helmet, like an astronaut, and it's completely sealed. Your hands are sealed, your ankles are sealed, your head, your neck completely sealed, impervious, impenetrable. Level B also requires the same protection, okay? A little different in design in the material that's used, but it's still encapsulated. Level C requires the use of non-permeable clothing and eye protection. You don't have to wear the scuba gear. Level D, which is the lowest of all protection levels, that requires a work uniform, such as overalls or coveralls as we call them, that give you minimal protection. In all of these levels, you are wearing gloves. And even the gloves, some are higher protective material being used rather than lower protective materials, such as the gloves that we wear. EMS wears gloves all the time. That would be a level D. Okay? Perfect example. Okay, I like the way he's saluting. Level A. If you noticed the wrists, okay, around the cuff, completely closed. If you look at the ankles, completely closed. You can't see it, but in the back of that red suit is gas tank, oxygen tank, because he's breathing through an oxygen tank. If you look a little closer at the picture through the plastic, okay, face protection, you can actually see he's wearing a mask underneath. Can you see that? Okay, but he's wearing a complete face mask, covering his eyes and breathing through that oxygen mask. Look at level B, same thing, but he doesn't have completely hooded or closed off. Level C, breathing apparatus, filters. And level D, a regular face mask. That will be an N95. Okay, so please remember, A, B, C, D. A, the most hazardous. D, the least. Okay, how do we care for the patients? It is practical only to provide the simplest assessment and essential care. Okay, that's pretty much it. We saw what it is and how it's being done. We know of all the hazards. Hazmat team, of course we're going to call them. Scuba, gloves, goggles, we got it. Okay, I'm not going to go through the review questions. Okay, it's not necessary. You guys are going to do the reading. It's almost 8:30. I would like to, with your permission, to go into the next PowerPoint. Okay, unless anybody
Actually,
has...
this is Michelle.
Sure.
I do have a quick question.
Yeah. Okay.
1 second. I think she just looked away from the screen.
No
Hold on.
problem. No problem.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, as far as the levels go with the A, B, C, is like A, would that be an oxygen tank? Something that would be connected to breathing through an oxygen tank, and maybe B would be similar.
Also. Yes.
And C, C and D would not have that.
No.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That's all.
Okay. Okay. Let's try the next PowerPoint. Let's see. Here we go. Terrorism. Okay. Terrorism. You guys don't see this, obviously, so let me go back. Let me go back and try this again. Let me hit share. Okay, let's find it. Incident, we did the incident. Why don't I see it? Okay, my apologies. Maybe it's this one. Let's see. Let me see. Let me pull it up. Okay, it's not. I'm going to go ahead and do this. Scroll down and see if it pops up. It didn't pop up just yet. Okay, try again. Okay, terrorism. There we go. Okay, you guys should be able to see this. Let's maximize it. Voila. Okay, terrorism speaks for itself. Terror. To instill fear. You may be called to respond at a terrorist event during your career. It is difficult to plan for, difficult to anticipate. We said that. Unexpected. Several key principles apply to every response, certain steps that we need to take. What is terrorism? Terrorists have been around forever and ever since, I don't know, the birth of man, if you will. Terrorism involves violent acts or acts dangerous enough to human life that violate federal or state or local laws and appears to be intended to 1. Intimidate or coerce a population, or to influence the policy of a government by intimidation or coercion, or affect the conduct of the government by mass destruction, assassination, or kidnapping. Now, do you remember recently when we had, a hacker, a terrorist attack that was imposed on our fuel, shortage? Do you remember that? When we had this immediate stop of all fuel refineries. Why? Because the computers basically just went down. It was hacked. There was also a massive outage of power. That was also a terrorist attack. What does that mean? They were basically looking for a ransom, money. You give us so much money and we will restore peace. And sometimes those ransoms are paid in the millions of dollars. Why? We just want to get back to normal. Okay? So that's what terrorism is. Okay? It's in a very, very ugly way of do some arm twisting to get my way. Okay? And yeah, it can cause lives for sure. International terrorism occurs primarily outside of the United States. Terrorism is common in the Middle East. Okay? And if you watch the news, folks, you'll see it's not only in the Middle East. Okay? There are many, many places. We even have homegrown terrorism, if you will. So domestic terrorism occurs primarily within the United States. I'm sure we have plenty of examples to think of. In the United States, domestic terrorists have struck multiple times. And I'm sure you know of a few that have occurred recently. Only a small percentage of groups actually turn to terrorism to achieve their goals. So terrorism is probably the most extreme, cases where a person, a group, a culture, a religion tries to impose their beliefs, their wants on another. That would be a very good definition of terrorism. It could be religious, political, cyber, single issue groups. Think of a single issue group and I'll give you an example. Planned Parenthood, where you have OBGYN, services, which include prenatal care, which include abortions, And if you have these groups that are anti-abortion, what they call pro-life, they can bomb a Planned Parenthood, and it has happened in the past. Why? Because they believe so strongly that this is wrong to them, where they want to impose, inflict harm to get their message across. So on one hand, you're pro-life. You don't want these babies being killed or taken out of the mother's body. But by the same token, now you're throwing a bomb into that facility, killing the people working in that facility. So why are you pro-life for this unborn life and you're not pro-life for the person that is alive? You see, it's just one of those things. If you think about it, it could drive you crazy. So that is what it is. It's also called weapons of mass destruction because we're looking to harm as many people as possible. Masses. Again, remember MCI, mass casualty incidents? Any agent designed to bring about massive death, casualties, meaning disability, and massive damage to property and infrastructure. So again, just think of something that is man-made magnitude. Think of war, right? No different. Now, what is this Be Nice, and CBRNE, or Cybern as we call it? These are mnemonics for the kinds of weapons of mass destructions. Weapons of mass destruction. We're going to talk about it. But these are just acronyms. Let me just continue and it's going to start making sense. Explosives, anything at all that you put together, that you mix, any concoction, anything that can explode, think of dynamite, okay? What does that do? An explosion, not only is it the force itself that is going to be disseminated, but also the people that, or structures that are found within that sphere of power, of force, okay, is going to be harmed. And now we talk about explosives. Chemical explosives, okay, anything at all that causes a blistering, and that's not just a blistering outside the body, it's blistering throughout the body. Think of your eyes, your nose, your mouth, your lungs, all having blisters within them, not only at the outside, but inside. Respiratory agents that cause you to choke, where you can't catch your breath, where you're having trouble breathing, that may help you stop breathing. Okay, so these weapons have been meant to choke, to kill. Nerve agents, what does that mean? The brain is affected. You lose control of all bodily functions. You have a seizure. You slip into a coma, you die. Metabolic agents, cyanides, again, they will alter the chemistry inside the body. All of these things are still out there. All of these things are still being used. Okay, think of biological terrorism. Anything at all that will cause disease, anything at all that will cause pain and suffering. Let's look at a few. A virus. What's a virus? We're having right now some sort of control over this virus, COVID. Okay? Is it man-made? Is it laboratory-made? Or is it a natural occurring? Between you and I, folks, the answer is still, we don't know. Whom do you believe? At this point, there's so much information out there, good and bad. You're still scratching your head and saying, I don't know. But right now, it doesn't matter. It's been out there. It has killed thousands of people. Okay, around the world, it has killed millions. And now you're thinking, is this terrorism or not? I can't answer that. Bacteria. What's a bacterium? A bacterium is going to multiply. It likes warm, dark places. What is the human body? Warm, dark, moist places. Bacteria like moisture also. Toxins. Any toxins that occur naturally, okay, is a problem. Think of a toxin from an animal. Think of a toxin from an insect. Those toxins can be found in laboratories, can be placed in a weaponized or weaponization form and disseminated in crowds, in people. Okay, so they're out there. Nuclear radiation. Think of the atom bomb, and the United States is the only country that used two of them. One, this is going back a number of years too, right? Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Okay, so the US actually dropped two bombs, one in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And to this day, the radiation fallout is still affecting generations and generations and generations since the dropping of the bomb. What does that mean? That means obliterated areas of the country, obliterated, nothing will grow, nothing will flourish, nothing will survive. Why? Because of that radiation fallout from that original dropping of the bomb. These materials are far easier for a determined terrorist to acquire and require less expertise to use. Pretty scary, right? Dirty bombs can cause widespread panic. So, right now as we speak, there's a lot of stuff out there. Other countries, including the US, we all have some sort of nuclear, okay, or radiological power. Okay. The basic foundation of patient care remains the same. So first and foremost, let's say you do respond. A lot of people are sick. A lot of people are injured. What's going on? What's going on? Okay. If you were told, or if there was a warning of an attack, sometimes terrorists will warn. They'll give a little hint here or there. Take it to be as such. Take it to be true. Don't say, it's just, no. You take every single threat very, very seriously. Okay. And Homeland Security is out there 24/7, making sure they keep their eyes and ears open throughout the world for any potential threats to us. Homeland Security. Okay? Now, what do? Treatment can and will be varied based on the patient's needs. What do we find? How do we find it? Always remember situational awareness. Did we not say that? Keep yourself safe, keep yourself safe, keep yourself safe. Okay? Now, how do we know it's a terrorist event? Most oftentimes, Homeland Security will tell us, you know what? The threat is pretty high. There's a high threat right now for an attack. Okay, so we keep our eyes and ears open just in case. So we have the National Terrorism Advisory System. Okay, they alert. Okay, containing summary of the threat and actions that first responders and government agencies need to deploy in order to keep themselves safe. So again, this is an evolutionary thing. Day by day, moment by moment, we're looking out for any possible threats from anywhere outside of the U.S. It may even be from within the U.S. So we keep our eyes and ears open. So in every call that you go on, you're going to look at the type of location. What type of location do we have? Is the location itself a threat to you and your partner? Well, if it is, that could be very well a terrorist attack. Okay, why? Because of the location having such a magnitude, such a high volume of something, maybe even as a container in a building, that could be explosive, ignited, smoke, toxins, okay, that could travel for miles and miles in the air. The type of the call, the number of patients that are involved, okay, the victim statements. What do they know? What precipitated? What were they doing prior to this event? And of course, the pre-incident indicators. Was there a warning? Did anybody say anything? Did anybody hear anything from anyone? Okay, so sometimes there may be a warning or not. Scene safety, uphill wind. Can't say that enough. Now, when it comes to terrorism, unfortunate but true, there are usually two attacks, one after the other. That means there's an original issue that goes off, let's say like an explosion. Once that explosive has gone off, ignited, we draw in the first responders, not only the community that was already injured, but we also draw in the responders, police, fire department, EMS, which includes paramedics, et cetera. And now we're pulling in all of these resources, these first responders, to this massive incident. So the first responders are adding to the numbers, are they not? Because they now have more people. And that's when you get that second device that will go off. Okay, that's where the secondary device comes. Additional explosives set to explode after the initial bomb. And it's a timed thing. I will allow the first one to go off, wait a little bit, set a timer, have enough people there, and let the second device go off. And now I have even more people injured, if not dead. See how that goes? They occur in twos. And this is something that we've seen throughout history, and it's a valid statement to kind of like put to memory. Two devices. Okay. The response actions. Is this terrorism? No. No. But the fact that I have a tanker that flipped, if I had several tankers that had flipped, or if this was a train, okay, could I say this is possible? Yeah, because one tanker, small numbers, small number of people, right? Just the driver, perhaps. Even with the first responders, how many people do I have? 5, 6, 7 people? Not big numbers. So this I would not consider a terrorist-like attack. But I want you to look at the person on the ground. See the person on the ground? That red-colored shirt? He's covered. Why is he covered? Because he's deceased. Okay? So the outcome of this accident, if you will, killed a person. I don't know if this is the driver. I don't know if this was a pedestrian. I don't know. But keep in mind the fact that we have a casualty, we have a deceased, that is heart-wrenching, and you still need to take the appropriate action because I see that tanker has some leakage. Do you see that fluid right under the sign, the yellow sign with the arrow? I see some fluid. That to me is a potential threat because if there's a spark, if that engine of the truck is still on, there's a propensity or there is a potential for a spark to ignite the fluid, whatever that fluid is. So you see, I would stay far away from it. And let me go back a second. See where the ambulance is? It's pretty far away. I would go even further back and walk. Okay? Safe rather than sorry. Okay, responder safety. Again, the greatest threat facing you in a weapons of mass destruction attack are contamination and cross-contamination. Okay? What does that mean? Sharing. We don't want to share. Notification. First thing you're going to do is talk on the radio. Let your dispatcher know what you see. You're not even outside of your vehicle at this point. You are staying in your vehicle safe and sound, and you're talking to your dispatcher over the radio. Okay? The nature of the event. What do I see? I see a tanker on its side with leaking fluids. Is it fuel? Windshield washer? I don't know what it is. Just say fluids. Any additional resources? Yep, I need hazardous material. Number of patients. How many people are involved? Upwind is the best way. Uphill, upwind. Okay, stay out of that line of fire. Stay away from the hazardous material. Okay, you're going to have a staging area where now you're going to sort, triage, who is a red, who is a yellow, who is a green, who is deceased. If somebody has already covered the body, you can uncover that body. Tilt the head a little bit. Will they start breathing? Yes or no? You're not breathing, you're black. Move on to the next person, the next person, the next person. Okay? Establish command, just like we saw. Reassessing scene safety. What does that mean? You're keeping your wits about you, always looking for any changes, okay? Anything that you see, anything that you smell, a sensory, anything at all that has the potential to turn ugly, okay? You're always, always in that situational awareness. Liquids, gases. Liquids can turn into gas. A gas can ignite under the right conditions, whether it's pressure, whether it's temperature, whether it's a spark, okay? Or sometimes it doesn't need anything at all. Many chemicals can just go up in flames all by themselves. Why? Because again, temperature or pressure changes. Now, here it says persistent. What is persistent? Stubborn. Think of it that way. Okay, hold on, Michelle, 2 seconds. Stubborn. It can remain on the surface for a long time. Persistent, stubborn. Non-persistent, it evaporates very quickly. Now, what's the difference between them? Something that is persistent is most often not ignitable. It won't go up in flames. And something that is non-persistent that goes from, let's say, a liquid or a solid to a gas can ignite much faster. Okay, Michelle, I'm all yours. What is your question?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about oxygen. That can explode, right? or ignite?
Oxygen is not flammable material. Oxygen is high pressurized gas.
Oh,
It
but
is,
like if
it's
it
not, it's not flammable. It's not flammable.
Mixed with other chemicals, it can sometimes explode, right?
For sure. For sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it can. Now, the route of exposure. How do we get it into the body? Is it through respiratory? Okay. Through inhalation? Is it through the skin? Got it? Is it through the eyes, the mucous membranes? How is it getting into the body? So certain chemicals, if they're going to be weaponized, made as a weapon, they have to be very, very specific to get into the body. Now, you know it as well as I do, we need to breathe. So if I should have that chemical, that threat, and I breathe it in, right, it will take effect maybe very quickly or not very quickly. It all depends on what that chemical is. But regardless, we don't want it in our bodies to begin with. So it says the route of exposure. Agents with a vapor hazard enter through the respiratory tract. A vapor. And sometimes a vapor can even be colorless and scentless. Have no scent at all. You can't see it. You can't smell it. But it's there. Agents with a contact hazard, meaning skin, give off very little vapor or no vapor that goes through the skin. It can burn the skin, okay, which will take a little bit longer to affect the body itself, okay? You have another question?
Yeah, Irene, I had a question about carbon monoxide. Is that in the same category?
Carbon monoxide is poison. Absolutely. Can I use carbon monoxide as a terroristic agent? The answer is yes, because carbon monoxide has no scent, it has no taste, it has no color. So the answer is carbon monoxide is definitely a gas that is poisonous. That is correct. Okay? A vesicant. A vesicant is blister causing. On the skin begins to blister. As it enters deeper and deeper into the body, those blisters will basically be throughout the body. You can only imagine what sort of damage these blisters will do to the lungs, to the throat, to your windpipe, where everything inside starts to blister, including your esophagus, where the food goes down, where the drink goes down. It is all blistered. Blisters are like open wounds. Can you imagine how painful and the agony would be? Okay, and that's the purpose. Sulfur mustard, yes, like the mustard that you put on your sandwich. But this is not the same like the stuff you put on your sandwich. This is highly concentrated, but it's still the same chemical. Mustard is mustard. Look what it says. Brownish, yellowish, oily substance. Well, mustard is that color, is it not? But this is specifically treated and processed to cause potential destruction of the white blood cells in your body. The white blood cells are for infection. Now, if you have this stuff in the body, it wipes out the immune system of the body. That's how dangerous it is. And it says sulfur mustard vapors can be inhaled, creating an upper and lower airway compromise. So you have this inside, and little by little, it'll just destroy, okay, from the inside. Notice what it says. It attacks vulnerable cells within the bone marrow. Your blood is created inside the long bones of the body. So when you make new blood, it starts in the bone marrow. So now you have this substance that destroys the bone marrow. Therefore, your blood will ultimately be obliterated, destroyed. Okay? Lewisite and phosgene, more chemicals that cause blistering. They will cause blistering upon contact. Okay? Now it says intense pain and discomfort. They may have a gray discoloration at the contamination site. So what did this touch? What area of the body did it touch? That area immediately will be gray, will be destroyed, will be blistered upon contact. Okay? So this has to be identified by hazardous material teams. You and I cannot identify them. But blister is a blister. Okay, blister is a blister. I see blistering all over the body, I'm already too close to them. Okay, pulmonary agents having to do with breathing. Okay, oxygen goes into your body, carbon dioxide goes out of the body. Wonderful. But if you have anything that interrupts that balance, disability and death, and here it is. The primary route is through the respiratory tract. Once inside the lungs, they damage the lung tissue and fluid leaks into the lungs. Now, your lungs are not meant to have water in them. Think of somebody that's drowning, right? What happens here? We start building up the fluid inside the lungs. You can't get that gas exchange. And what's going to happen? This person is basically going to lose their ability to get that oxygen to survive, and that will cause death. And that's the purpose. The pulmonary edema, I want you to write this down. I want you to memorize it. Pulmonary edema is that water in the lungs. That means there's fluid retention inside the lung tissue, not allowing the gas exchanges to occur because the lungs now have water in them, and the gas, which is not solid enough, can't have the ability to go through that water. It's like you trying to run across a room that is full of water. Can you run? Absolutely not, because you have the resistance, right? That pressure from the water. So the same thing happens in the lungs. The gas exchange will not be adequate to sustain life. Okay? Chlorine. You know what chlorine is? Bleach, right? You want to get the white clothing white? Use Clorox, chlorine. The pool. You want to kill germs? Use Clorox, bleach. But in this case, it's not meant for cleaning purposes. It is meant to do what? Look what it says here. Initially produces upper airway irritation, choking, and ultimately death, depending on how long you've been exposed, how much of this has gotten into the body, and ultimately this chlorine will not allow oxygen to contribute to the person's life. The chlorine will say, I'm here. I got this. You're done. It won't allow the oxygen to occur because chlorine is a very, very good irritant. Okay. It's an oxidizing agent. And what it won't allow the body to do is give off the checks and balances. Oxygen for carbon dioxide. The chlorine is going to knock out, okay, that capability. Phosgene is a byproduct of production of combustion. Anything that explodes, okay, combustion. Very potent agent, okay, and signs and symptoms of mild exposure. What does that mean? Anything at all that the person displays that wasn't there before, something unusual, out of the norm, okay, will have this toxicity. And if it's phosgene, it can only be identified by an expert. Yes, talk to me. You have your hand?
Yeah, no, you just answered my question. I was just wondering, like, if an expert would classify these for us before we head in.
Only, yes, only an expert. Only an expert. Okay.
And then once they give us the go, that it's safe, we go ahead and do what we need, right?
What is the go? The go is how do we decontaminate if it's already in the lungs? I mean, can I reach inside the lungs, take them out, wash them, and put them back in the person's body? The only thing you can do, because this is depleting the body of oxygen, what's the first line of defense that all EMS has, the fire department has, is oxygen, that green tank. So all we can do at that point is give the patient what they need, oxygen, and go. Once they have been decontaminated by hazmat or haztac, if we get to them in time, that's the only thing we can do. Monitor the person, making sure they're still breathing, making sure they're getting that oxygen, and, hope for the best. That's all we can do. Okay? Nerve agents, that will work on the brain, on the central nervous system. The central nervous system we already spoke about. It's the brain and the spinal cord. Anything having to do with brain function is already onto itself a life threat. Okay? Don't mess with the brain. It's the master organ. It's the master computer of you. So this is, like it says, among the most deadly nerve agents, the most deadly, because once it messes up the brain, you go into a seizure, you slip into a coma, you're done. So this can cause cardiac arrest within seconds of exposure, depending on the toxicity of the nerve agent. And there are several of them out there. G agents came from an early nerve agent known as the G series. Now, one thing you have to remember, the G series has been used for many, many, many decades. Okay? Many decades. And it was especially produced or created during warfare. When countries are fighting, I need a weapon. And unfortunately, the Germans have the best, okay, the best nerve agents, okay. They were able, okay, the German chemists during the war were able to come up with these nerve agents. And I am creating this so I can win, so I can disable my enemy. And here are a few of them. The nerve agents that we know is taboon, okay. It has a fruity odor. So if you guys have a good sense of smell, it smells like fruit. Well, how do I know it's not fruit? Go figure, right? It says easy to manufacture. The symptoms are immediately upon exposure, okay? And the route of exposure is the skin that becomes a vapor, and it's extremely hazardous. Let's look at sarin. What's sarin? Okay? It will off-gas while on the victim's clothing. What does that mean? It'll vaporize. It'll vaporize, become a vapor. The onset is immediate, okay? Primarily respiratory, vapor hazard, skin exposure, extremely lethal. I'm sure you've heard of sarin somewhere in the news, okay, at some point. Soman, also fruity odor, immediate response upon exposure, skin contact, minimal vapor hazard. In other words, it doesn't vaporize quickly. V agents, no odor, be careful now, no odor whatsoever. Immediate response upon exposure. The body responds in a volatile way. And this is skin contact, no vapor, hazard unless aerosolized. And in the middle where it says special features, it's the most lethal chemical agent. And it says difficult to decontaminate. Which one is it? The V agent. Remember that. Okay, I want you to remember the V agent, just in case you see it as an exam question somewhere. So this is the most lethal of all. Okay, I don't agree with the odor being fruity, fruity, fruity. I love fruit, but as soon as I smell something that's fruity, it will attract my attention. Next thing you know, it's a nerve agent to kill Irene. Okay, not a good thing. So watch out for that. What do nerve agents do? We said the body will react in a violent way. Good. But let's see what the symptoms are. What are the signs that this is in fact a nerve agent? EMS, fire department, hazardous material tech agents, they know these symptoms. They know these signs. And I want you to look at the military mnemonic and then the medical. They're pretty much one and the same. This is where the body loses all control of all the bodily fluids. And it says, sludgem, the bold letters. Hold on with the questions. And on the medical mnemonic, dumbbells. I have sludgem, I have dumbbells. All I want you to remember with nerve agents, the body cannot control the fluids that it contains. Every single fluid in the body will just leak out. Okay? Salivation, sweating, excessive runny nose, excessive tearing, urination. You pee on yourself, you defecate on yourself, you have diarrhea, you have vomiting. All of these things are very good indicators of nerve agents. If you go to the other side, same thing. All of the fluids are coming out of the body. You pee on yourself, you poop on yourself, you vomit. It's just horrible. And you can die within minutes of what? Dehydration. You lose all of your bodily fluids. You lose all of your bodily functions. Okay. What was your question, my dear?
No, you actually answered it. Thank you.
Okay. I usually do, if you give me a chance. Okay. Metabolic agents, hydrogen cyanide. Okay. Cyanogen chloride. Try saying those things 3 times in a row. Very, very fancy chemical ways of saying cyanide. Cyanide is nasty, 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 nasty. Okay? Cyanide agent treatment. Cyanide agent treatment can only be done by a professional that is familiar with cyanide. Now, one thing I've been told, cyanide has a scent of bitter almonds. If you guys like almonds, take an almond, crush it. Ooh, that smells nice, right? Okay. But with cyanide, it's the same almond scent, but it has a bitter scent to it. Again, we're talking about somebody has a really, really good nose for it, but not everybody does. You smell something, you don't pay attention to it. Yeah, whatever. But if it's cyanide, it does give off this bitter almond scent. My question is, how do you know somebody's not baking with almonds? Or, better still, almond extract, flavoring, syrups. Go figure. Okay? So, I hate to say this, but as soon as you smell something, I don't want you to panic, say, oh my goodness, it's a terrorist attack. Not necessarily. Unless, A, we get the notification, remember, from Homeland Security, right? From FEMA, or from any other agency, okay? You might even get it from, a doctor, or you may even get it from your own agency, your own facility that says, hey, we have this threat, get away, take cover, or get away from that location. So again, anything that is to give you that alarm effect, go with it. Just go with it. Okay? But I'm not saying as soon as you smell something, it's like, Irene told me to run. No, that's not what I'm saying. Wait for the alert, okay, or someone to summon that alert, if you will, that there is a posed threat or an imposing or potential threat. Okay? Biological, anything that causes disease. Anything that causes disease. Biological. All the way in the bottom, dissemination is the mean by which a terrorist will spread the agent. How will I get it to the masses? Okay? A disease vector is an animal that can spread disease to another animal. And I hate to say it. Can it cross species from animal to human? Absolutely. And one example, which is not terrorist, at least that we know of, is the Ebola virus. The Ebola came from a primate, a monkey. And now, unfortunately, that virus was able to make it into the community, into the human population. And to this day, we still have Ebola virus deaths. Not as significant as once before, but now it is identified and it has been controlled. So the question here is, how did that happen? Well, it went from an animal to a human to a population. So think about it. If a terrorist really wanted to use an animal that's infected with the virus or infect the animal or animals with the virus and just kind of like let them loose, okay? And let's say we hunt these animals, we cook these animals, we consume these animals. What are you actually consuming? The virus, because the bodies are already contaminated. Think about it. So there's many, many ways of getting this stuff in. So right now, Irene was thinking like a terrorist. I just gave you an example. So if you can think it, it's possible. Okay, how easily the disease is able to spread from one human to another is called communicability. Communicability. Okay, how easily transmissible is it? Incubation is the period of time it takes for the person from the time they were exposed until the first symptoms of illness, okay, of not feeling right. What's the incubation? Depends. Depends on the agent. Could be days, okay, could be weeks. So not all biological agents have the same timeline. They don't actually have like an alarm. It all depends on the person's resistance and ability to maybe fight or inhibit this biological agent of producing as quickly. So, you know, the very young are young, underdeveloped. The very old are pretty much immunocompromised because of age. And they may have pre-existing medical problems as it is. So those people most likely are the high, okay, or the highest death rate, if you will, the very young and the very old. What's a virus? A virus is in need of a host. A virus is in need of a host. COVID, perfect example, still out there. Okay? So once it gets into a body, it now replicates in the cell of the host, if you will. It takes the DNA from the nucleus and mass produces itself. That's why it needs a host. It needs something like a parasite, if you will, to latch on to survive, to replicate itself, to produce itself, okay, in greater numbers. Yes, this is smallpox. Smallpox, we have vaccine for smallpox. Every child, every infant is vaccinated in the US with smallpox. Why? Because not only is this very contagious, but it is lethal. Now you see all the blisters on this poor child. You see the blisters on the outside? You have just as many blisters inside throughout the body, inside the lungs, the respiratory tract, the gastrointestinal tract. They will not survive this. Okay? They will not survive this. So if you see anything at all that looks like there's something growing coming out of the body like this, do not touch it. Do not touch it. Okay? Okay, so viruses, how do we disseminate them? If you really want to do the greatest number of casualty or have the greatest number of casualties, just give me a moment. You want to put this in aerosol form, aerosolize it, make it into a vapor. So when people are breathing, they're breathing it in. And that's the best way, the fastest way to get the virus in the body. COVID, how was this now spreading so quickly? Through aerosolization in the air. That's why everybody now is wearing what? A mask. Okay, Michelle, you have a question.
Yeah, so the picture you showed about the smallpox, what's the difference between chickenpox and smallpox?
Okay. Chickenpox, smallpox, they're two different things. Two different things, okay? Chickenpox. Now, you guys know chickenpox is out there, very common to see like in schools. What happens is you have the chickenpox, of course, also being viral. It runs its course. It's not going to kill you. Smallpox, on the other hand, these blisters will blister the entire respiratory system within, and that's why it's lethal. Chickenpox, you get the rash, right? Low grade fever, whatever. In about 7 to 10 days, you heal. Yeah, you have some scarring, right? But you heal from it. Chickenpox is not deadly unless the chickenpox reaction is of an infant, a very, very young infant, because it's a virus, okay? Or it has affected an elderly person that is already immunocompromised. Chickenpox can cause problems, complications, but not often enough. Smallpox, lethal. That's why we have a vaccine against it. We also now have a vaccine against chickenpox. Okay, it's been out for about 25, 26 years now. So there is a chickenpox vaccine. Why? Because we don't want complications. So they figure, okay, let's get vaccinated. But back in the day, as soon as we found out somebody had chickenpox, we would send the child, get the chickenpox, let it run its course, so now you have some immunity to it. That's the difference. Smallpox kills. It attacks the respiratory system. Chickenpox, not so bad. Okay? Yeah, you have some issues. Yeah, you have, these pimples, and you're fine. You're fine. But with smallpox, no. It's far more toxic. Okay, communicability is high with viruses. It likes people. We like to share. The route of entry, inhalation. Signs and symptoms: fever, malaise meaning you just run down, body aches, headaches, blisters, bleeding of the skin, mucous membranes also start bleeding. Incubation 10 to 12 days. Okay, so about 2 weeks or so. Duration of the illness, approximately 4 weeks. 4 weeks. Okay, that's a long time. Medical management standard precautions: no specific treatments. No specific treatments. Okay? Now, for those that have not been vaccinated, this could be a death sentence. Okay? Now we have viral hemorrhagic fever. Think of Ebola, right? Think of Ebola, which is one of the viral hemorrhagic fevers. It causes the blood of the body to seep out of the tissues and the blood vessels. The patient will have flu-like symptoms. Okay? They will have internal bleeding, which eventually will leak out. And guess what? The blood that is leaking out of the body is full of this virus. So if you come in contact with that blood, you have already contaminated yourself. That's why when we had the Ebola outbreak, it was very hard to control. Why? It happened in poor country, Africa. They did not have gloves. They did not have the PPE, the protective equipment. And this is how so many people died because of it. Okay? One more and I'll give you guys a break. Okay, the same thing as we said before, bacteria. What's a bacteria? Bacteria don't need a host to survive, like a virus. Bacteria can live on surfaces. Bacteria can live on surfaces, but bacteria just need someplace cozy, dark, warm, moist environments. Once we get the bacteria in that environment, it replicates on its own. Doesn't need a host. Okay? So the bacteria, we can use biotics. Bacteria, we can try to fight with antibiotics. And it doesn't necessarily have to be one antibiotic. We could use 2. I've even heard 3 different antibiotics at once to kill the bacteria, because you probably heard of the term superbug, and that's what it is. It's a bacteria that is almost impossible to eradicate from the body. Okay, so they do exist, and that is a problem for the EMTs that may potentially become affected by this bacterium or by this virus. So that's why we always say gown up, glove up, protect yourself. Okay? Now, the time is 9:15. Can we take a 5-minute break, please? Okay, let's take a 5-minute break. And yes, hi.
Hi, how are you? They can go on break. That's not a problem. I don't need to speak to the students. What time do you think you will be breaking them tonight, roughly?
Oh, I do not know. I don't know how many more slides I have. Shall I go back and take a look?
Yeah, just to give me a rough idea, because I'd like to speak to you after they're done.
Okay.
We can get rid of the students that don't need to be in it, and I will need to speak to the interpreters and Michelle as well.
Okay. I'm trying to see if I can minimize this. Hold on. Give me a second. Let me hit escape. See if I can get out of this mode for a second. Just give me a second here. Come on. Okay. Let's see if I can pull it up. Let me do this. Let me try something. Okay. Bear with me. Let me just scroll down. And I will tell you. Because I have 106. And I am already at about 60. So I still have about 40 more slides to go. I could fast forward a little bit.
This is the last lecture for tonight?
Yes, it is.
All righty. And roughly, what time do you think you'll be done?
15 minutes. I can make it in 10 minutes.
All righty. Yeah, don't rush it. The 15 minutes is fine. And that's good. All right, go ahead on your break and get a cup of coffee, Greek coffee.
Okay, I will. I'll finish my Greek coffee.
There you go.
Okay, sure. Bye.
All right.
Okay. Okay, folks, because there's a little bit of a time constraint. Let's forge ahead. So far so good. We're doing okay. And we do see share. Lovely. Like I said before, bacteria, they do pretty much on their own. You don't want to get this stuff into your lungs, into your body. Inhalation. You probably remember some years ago we had an anthrax scare. This white powder that was now going into the lungs, causing death. Okay, anthrax is still out there. It's a naturally occurring bacterium, but now it was used as a terrorist weapon. It was weaponized years ago. But at this point in time, whoever weaponized it for whatever reason, we're aware of it. So now it seems like any white powder that we see, oh my goodness, it's anthrax, okay? Including, the white powder on your donuts. People may think it's immediately anthrax. Okay, what does it do? It's aerosolized. It goes into the respiratory system, causing flu-like symptoms, okay? And this is where the edema, the swelling of the lungs, if you will not allow the gas exchange to occur between oxygen and carbon dioxide. The plague speaks for itself. This is going back to the Dark Ages. We've had several plagues, but I'm sure you've heard of the bubonic plague. Notice what it says here. The vector, rodents, fleas. And now, of course, humans living amongst the vermin, they would get bitten. They would now get this bacterium into the body. And unfortunately, it wiped out, I believe, like 2/3 of Europe. So bacteria, nasty stuff. That's why we have to have PPE, protection of the mucous membranes, your eyes, wear goggles, because you never know what's out there. What am I looking at? The black spots that you see, that is necrotic tissue, dead tissue, okay? Dead tissue. What about it? Aerosolized yet again. Neurotoxins. Neurotoxins affect what? The central nervous system, the brain, the spinal cord. Never a good thing because your neurological function. The neurological function of the nerves are for breathing, cardiac, brain. Okay, everything is working based on electricity, and these neurotoxins kind of like knock that out. So you want to make sure anything at all that looks suspicious from marine animals, bacteria, plants, stay away from them. Why? Because they can cause harm. Think of snake, neurotoxin. Botulism. I don't think anybody that doesn't know about botulism. Okay, botulism is natural occurring. Many times when you buy a can that is bulging, they say don't consume the food. Why? Because there may very well be botulism that is growing inside of that can. Okay, we buy canned goods, you forget about them. Now it's bulging, and yeah, they have found botulism inside those cans. That's why we tell you anything that is dented, anything that is bulging, stay away from it. Okay, and again, what happens here with botulism? It's a paralytic. It paralyzes the body. It paralyzes you. So the one organ you don't want to paralyze is your diaphragm. Your diaphragm needs to go up and down. It's a muscle in order for you to breathe. So now if you have the botulism, that toxin in the body, it will now make your muscles paralyzed, useless. And the breathing muscle, once it stops working, you stop breathing, you die. Okay? Ricin. Again, very bad. It causes swelling of the lungs, respiratory failure, cardiac failure. And if you notice, all of these, we're trying to get it into the lungs, neurotoxins. What do? Keep your eyes and ears open, stay away. If you have more than one person with the same signs, with the same symptoms, this may very well be a terrorist attack. Okay? Point of distribution, or the POD. This means when we have antidotes for certain neurotoxins, for certain weapons of mass destruction, if you will. We are now deployed to go pick up the antidote and bring it to a location. Nobody knows where the stockpile is. It's supposed to be under controlled secrecy, if you will, okay? Because if everybody knew where these antidotes are, we could actually go and cause, tamper, a terrorist attack on these stockpiles of antidotes. So it's a hush-hush, top secret thing. So what we do is, once we're told, go pick up this antidote and bring it to this location, okay, that's what we do. We're basically the transporting system. So this is something that I want you to know. Points of distribution for the antibiotics, the antidotes, for anything that is posing as a national threat or terrorist attack, if you will. Okay, ionizing radiation, I'm going to go right into the picture. I'm sure you know what nuclear, okay, radiological is. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta. Okay, I'm not going to say delta, but on the very, very bottom, okay, because I'm talking, you can't see what says neutron. So we have the alpha, beta, gamma, the Greek alphabet, and neutrons. Which is the most powerful of all? Neutrons. You can't see it, taste it, smell it, it's out there. Okay? So depending on what has been disseminated, like think of an X-ray, radiology, X-rays. When you're going for X-rays, what do? They throw the lead sheet, right? The bib on you so you don't get too much into your body, only to a certain area, let's say like your teeth, okay? A specific area of the body. So this stuff is pretty bad because it goes inside and it will mutate the cells of the body. It will actually transform the inside of the body, the functions of the body. Very dangerous, of course. And where do we find radiological nuclear material? We find them in hospitals. We find them In other areas, let me just go back a moment. Hospitals, healthcare facilities, colleges. Why? For research purposes. Nuclear power plants and chemical and industrial sites. It's out there. While you and I are sleeping, most oftentimes these materials are being transported in the superhighways by train, going to specific locations. And they usually transport where there is the least amount of population away, which is overnight. Okay? Okay. Radiologic dispersal devices. Any container designed to disperse this material, in other words, a dirty bomb, can injure victims with radioactive or explosive material. Dirty bomb, meaning only to cause harm to the masses. Okay? Nuclear energy is artificially made by altering or splitting radioactive atoms. Okay? We have nuclear power plants all over the world. Okay? And this is happening as we speak. What's the purpose? The nuclear material is used in medicine, weapons, naval vessels, power plants. Different uses based on the need. Okay? Nuclear weapons, scary? Sure. Do we have a stockpile of them? Sure. The only thing is we don't want to use them because, nuclear weapons, there are no survivors. There are no survivors. Patients exposed to excessive radiation are considered victims of acute radiation toxicity, which means if it doesn't kill you like immediately, it will over time. It just eats you up alive from the inside out. Okay. If you were exposed a little bit to this material, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, dizziness, headache. A little bit more exposure. Why? Time, concentration, first-degree burns, hair loss, immune system, death of the white blood cells, and cancer, which is happening as we speak in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Severe exposure, second, third-degree burns, cancer, and death. Okay? Being exposed to radiation does not make the patient contaminated or radioactive. That means you're not going to glow in the dark. Okay? However, when patients have a radioactive source in their body, on their body, they must be cared for hazmat responders. Again, trained individuals beyond our level. After decontamination, you may begin treatment. ABCs. I hope you folks remember the ABCs. Airway, breathing, circulation. And again, if you take nothing else, get nothing else out of this course, it's those three letters. Airway, breathing, circulation, because you can't live without any one of those three. Wear appropriate PPE. What do we say? Goggles, mask, gloves, gown up, suit up, if the need be. There is no protective gear designed to completely shield you from radiation. So you're thinking, is this alpha? Is it beta? Is it gamma? Is it neutron? Will you know? I don't know. That's why you want to stay as far away as possible, uphill, upwind. Let the professionals take care of it. Okay. Incendiary starts fires, explosive of various shapes and sizes. It's important to identify an object you believe is a potential device. See something, say something, stay away. Okay? Primary blast will affect the immediate surroundings. A secondary blast or secondary injury is from getting that flying debris, that wave, if you will. And now what you're going to do is fly. Notice what it says here. The whole body is displaced. You go flying. And the fourth injury is where do you land? Where do you wind up? So you actually have 4 injuries in one explosive device. Okay, pretty significant stuff, right? What is the physics of an explosion? When it detonates, whether it's a solid or a liquid or even a gas, it's under high pressure. Okay? High pressure. It generates a sphere, a ball, if you will. Flying debris and high winds commonly cause conventionally blunt and penetrating trauma. So this ball, this explosion, this sphere is the problem, the force that is coming at you, invisible, until you have debris hitting you. You're flying, and wherever you land, you hit a solid object, you are now being crushed. Hollow organs, such as the middle ear, the lungs, the GI tract, are most susceptible to pressure changes. Okay? And that's why with explosions, people go deaf. They may even have bleeding from their ear. Why? Because they just blow out the eardrum. Okay? Keep that in mind. Blast lung, where the lungs have been pressurized, they will start to bleed. They have been pressurized to the point where they won't be able to function properly, which means you're not getting oxygen and you can die from that. Okay? I'm not going to go over the review questions with your permission because Mr. Raboni is looking for me, and the review questions you could actually do upon reading the chapter on your own time. Now, without further ado, any quick questions you may have for me before we say goodnight, or if you have questions, you'll see me tomorrow night and we can pick up where we left off then. Any questions at all? Okay. Please read up on these chapters if not already. Try to do as much of the e-workbook at the back of the chapter. Do as much of this as possible to reinforce the information. This is testable material. Okay, folks? Okay. So what I will do is I will sign off. Frank, are you still there?
I'm still here. You need to stay on.
Okay, I will stay on. Okay, folks, you can sign off.
Have
Have
a
a
good night.
beautiful evening.
Thank you.
Michelle
Thank you.
and both interpreters need
Thank
to
you.
stay on.
Okay, both interpreters, please stay on.
Thank you. Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night, folks. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. That wasn't too bad with the timing. I kept my word.
All right, I think Mayvo, you could sign her out. Wait a second, I can.
Okay. Okay, signed out.
Mayvo. Videos, spotlight, vehicles.
Mavo. Okay.
I'm looking at a.
Yeah.
All righty, yeah, she's done.
She's out. Okay.
All right, so we worked out the kinks for the closed captioning.
Okay.
And then once we're done, I should get a link for an email, and that should have the closed captioning mixed in with the email or with the link for the video.
Okay.
I'm going to send that to Michelle, and if she wants to view it, I mean, it's another alternative of reviewing the material. Yes, there were some incorrect spellings that were mixed in, but Irene did the best she could. As far as the lectures, how are things going now, Michelle?
Great. Yeah, I've been really impressed. Yeah, it's been great.
Okay. And I guess Maria and Emily, you're going to be EMTs by the time this course is done, huh?
For sure.
I'll leave that up to you.
All righty. So as long as everything is going okay, tomorrow night, Irene is going to be doing another lecture, and she's going to send out an email. I sent her all the new links and everything with people included on it.
And this is Michelle, really quick. Can we actually save the transcript?
Yes, that can be saved as well. Hold on one second. Let me see.
Okay, perfect.
Start sharing. Closed caption. I'm sorry. I just need to look at the areas here. Disable. Assign someone to type.
I think you might be able to copy it even.
Chat.
This on the closed caption live transcript. You might be able to click it and copy it.
It says save chat. Let me see what happens when it says save chat. Chat saved, show in folder.
Yeah, I haven't tried it either. I'm not sure how to do it.
All right, the chat just has the information from the chat box. So there really isn't anything there that's appropriate that she would need. Chat, save chat, participant chat with no one that you want to report. Yeah, it's just the chat box information that you would see on the chat box. So there's nothing there that can be saved. And I'm looking at the live transcript and it just says disable auto transcription. And
I think I can, it looks like I have the option to do it. It's almost 50 pages. Do you see that option?
can you direct me to it? Just tell me where to go.
So I just clicked on, it says show in folder.
Okay, meeting saved.
I can even send it if you a copy. Let me see.
Yeah, now is that all the information from the closed captioning box?
She's actually, I think, trying to send that to you. So give us 1 second to answer the question.
All right, the recording I'm going to shut off now. So this way,
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and share this with you. I think I can.
okay. All right, the recording is closed.